Chapter 2707. Madam, I know I was wrong one. Go back. However, let's go do something else before we go back. Azure smiled evilly. What? Lung Ruoxua was very puzzled. Was Tsong still not satisfied after taking away the blood lotus flower that the Ripple Mist slut had taken a fancy to? What else do you want to do? It had to be said that Lung Ruoxua was right again. In reality, ever since Lung Ruoxua and the others were attacked by the fog, Azure had been holding back a grudge. It was just that it had been holding back and not looking for trouble with the fog. It was so patient because it was waiting for the day the blood lotus flower ripened. It had long decided that the moment the blood lotus flower ripened would be the moment when it would feel the most heartache. After all, who would be able to stand the fact that something that they had been looking forward to for tens of thousands of years now belonged to someone else? But now, it felt that since it had stolen the blood lotus flower, it could do something else in passing. In any case, they were all rhyme ice, so it was the same as stealing one, and it was the same as stealing two. In that case, it didn't seem like it was a big deal to get more. With this thought in mind, it brought Lung Ruoxua back here. Of course, this was only their first stop. After all, it was the closest to the nameless mountain where the blood lotus flower resided. Girl, I remember you saying that you've recruited all the guild leaders in the godly continent. Azure asked with a smile. Yes. Lung Ruoxua nodded. This matter was no longer a secret in the Devil's Land. What's the use of guilds that do quests in the godly continent? If you want to accept us, then accept those from the divine realm. You bastard. Wiping out all the guild quests in the divine realm is the same as cutting off half of the arm of that wastrel. Azure couldn't help but remind him. You're here for the divine realm's quest guild? Lung Ruoxua was enlightened. Why would Azure come to an unfamiliar city for no reason? It turned out that he had the intention of taking on the guilds here for quests. However, wouldn't it be a little dangerous to take in all the quests in the divine realm? However, Lung Ruoxua truly felt that this was a good idea, especially after she had a taste of the benefits in the godly mainland. However, the guild had also accepted the divine realm's quest. She had never thought about it before. Oh. It wasn't that she hadn't thought about it, but it was only for a moment. After all, she was still afraid of alerting the enemy. She didn't want to drive that bitch, Wucheng, crazy, but looking at Song's current thoughts, it was clear that he wanted to drive Wucheng crazy. Or it could be said that it had already driven the Mist Ripple crazy. When she thought of this, Lung Ruoxua didn't wait for Tsong to reply and couldn't help but ask. Azure, you've completely angered Rhyme by snatching away the blood lotus flower. Shouldn't we return to Demon City first to guard against the sneak attack of that wretched Rhyme? Don't worry. She doesn't even have the ability to launch a sneak attack now. That bitch was so angry at our little tricks that she vomited blood, and even fainted a few times. Song covered his mouth with his furry little paws and laughed secretly. Ugh. You vomited blood because of your little tricks, right? Lung Ruoxua could swear that she really did not do anything. She had been completely abducted by Tsong. However, she was on Song's side, so it didn't seem like there was any point in denying it. This was because Wu Jing must have already determined that she was also involved. From what you've said, the Ripple Mist bitch's injuries must have worsened. Why don't we sneak attack her? Lung Ruoxua suggested after some thought. Take her life while she's sick. What a classic saying. Girl, although I agree with your opinion, you should know that a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. It won't do us any good if we sneak attack her now. If she decides to go all out and fight to the death, we'll both suffer heavy losses, and that's not the result I want. Azure calmly analyzed. After hearing Wan Song's opinion, Lung Ruoxua calmed down. That's right. With the crazy personality of the Rhyme people, they might really fight to the death with them. Of course, that was if they forced the other party into a corner. Thanks, but what they were doing now was not enough to drive Wu Chen crazy. Lung Ruoxua was conflicted and at a loss. For a moment, she did not know what to do. Song saw through Lung Ruoxua's thoughts and smiled. Girl, although the blood lotus flower is very important to Wu Yan, it's not enough for her to fight to the death. You know, based on my understanding of her, she must be thinking about snatching the blood lotus flower back one day, so this is not a dead end for her. But once we make her lose her way out, She will definitely not let us have an easy time. I know that bitch too well. Alright, I'll do as you say. Cold's words made Lung Ruoxue unable to refute. Azure nodded in satisfaction, then pointed at the city gate with his claw. Let's start from here on the quest to conquer the divine realm. Let's go. Oh, set off. Let's go. Suddenly, a young and tender voice rang out. Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with black lines. This little flower that had always been in Song's arms, he didn't expect her to be so eager to see the world in chaos. Moreover, it didn't know who it had inherited its boisterous and lively personality from. Let's go. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Just like that, a man, a beast, and a flower began their journey to subdue the Divine Realm Mission Guild. Half a month later, other than the headquarters of the Mission Guild in Imperial City, all the other mission guilds in the Divine Realm were now in Lung Ruoxue's possession. Lung Ruoxue had earned a lot from those mission guilds. Of course, for the sake of the mission guild's business of infernal affairs, she had left some resources for the mission guild. Otherwise, the Divine Master's residence would have been suspicious. With Azure's violent cooperation, the guild leaders of the major cities' quest guilds had almost no chance to resist and were obediently captured. Lung Ruoxue was naturally happy to be at ease. After sweeping through the entire God realm, Lung Ruoxue, who thought that she could go home, was in a mess when she found out that Song was going to the Imperial City and had taken over the guild headquarters. The rhyme bitch had just been provoked, and now they're taking the initiative to send themselves to her door. If Rhyme were to know that the two of them had gone to the Imperial City, she wondered if she would come and chase after them with her injuries. Lung Ruoxue was suddenly curious. However, she was still unwilling to waste her time in the headquarters of the Imperial City. She was a little homesick. More importantly, she knew very well that when she returned home, her godfather and the others would probably complain again. Sob. Thinking of this, she was a little sad. Azure, are you sure you want to go to the Imperial City? Lung Ruoxue knew that it would be hard to convince Song, who was in high spirits, so she could only ask. Of course, we've already come this far, so how can we return empty-handed? Song heavily nodded. Yes. They were now very, very close to the Imperial City, only less than 1,000 meters away. If the guards were more focused, they might be able to discover their presence. Lung Ruoxue could not help but secretly praise them. But now the attention of the city guards was obviously not on them. In other words, she didn't expect the two of them to dare to come to U City. Then I'll change my appearance. Jian Song's will was very firm, so Lung Ruoxue could only give up her life to accompany him. Why are you changing your appearance? When Azure heard this, he blinked his eyes and a puzzled expression appeared on his face. Chapter 2708. Madam, I'm sorry too. You don't want us to enter the city like this, do you? Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Song had previously said that they couldn't provoke Rhyme now. If they really went in like this, wouldn't Wuqing go crazy? Can't I? Azure asked innocently. Lung Ruoxue looked at Song, then glanced at the little red flower that it had been holding in its arms. She sighed and said, Do you think we're suitable to enter the defense city in our current state? She was in Wu Xiao's eyes, and Song was seen as a life and death enemy by Wu Xiao. In addition, the blood lotus flower in Song's arms had been coveted by Wu Xiao for a long time. This man, beast, and flower was definitely sending a sheep into the tiger's mouth. Of course, the tiger was only injured, but there was no guarantee that the tiger would not come to catch them when it heard that they were coming. Such a fact made Lung Ruoxue extremely confused. Previously, Azure had said that they couldn't take advantage of a certain someone's illness to launch a sneak attack, as that might make the other party desperate. However, at this moment, wouldn't what they were prepared to do make the other party go crazy? Lung Ruoxue deeply felt that as long as Wu Chen found out that they had entered the Imperial City, that old woman would definitely appear with injuries. At that time, I'm afraid I won't be able to avoid it even if I want to. She even suspected that although Tsang said that he couldn't take advantage of Wu Xiao's serious injuries to launch a sneak attack, he still hadn't given up on the idea of angering her to death. It had to be said that angering the other party to death was indeed much easier than a sneak attack. I don't think it's inappropriate at all. Girl, we're going to use city to do something, not to fight with Wu Yan. I think, with her current injuries, as long as we don't provoke her, she won't easily make a move. That person is very patient. You have to believe in her self-control. Song knew Lung Ruoxia's thoughts and comforted her. Wasn't this considered a provocation? Lung Ruoxia was speechless. However, she knew that in Song's heart, as long as they didn't attack the Divine Master's estate, it definitely wouldn't be considered a provocation. Moreover, the things they had to do in the guild for the mission. Alright. It was not a provocation if it was not exposed. In normal business dealings, the Divine Master's estate couldn't possibly not make any money. Just like that, Lung Ruoxia calmed down. Then she carried Song, and Song carried the red blood lotus flower. The human, beast, and flower swaggered towards the entrance of the Imperial City. When they arrived at the Imperial City's gate, the guards' eyes almost popped out of their sockets when they saw Lung Ruoxia. Their mouths were half open, and they could not form a complete sentence for a long time. And it wasn't just one guard. The guards at the city gate all looked like they had seen a ghost when they saw her. Their incomparably shocked and incredulous gazes caused Lung Ruoxia to feel depressed. This was the tragedy of being famous. He would be recognized wherever he went, especially when he was in the enemy's territory. I want to enter the city. After feeling depressed, Lung Ruoxia immediately adjusted her state of mind. She glanced at the guard and deliberately put on a noble and cold appearance as she spoke calmly. Thanks. Upon hearing this, the guards instantly went into a frenzy and caused a commotion. After the commotion, the guard leader braced himself and asked with a vigilant look, "What are we doing in the city? Do you need to ask so clearly? In the past, Imperial City didn't need to do this." Lung Ruoxia pretended to be unhappy. "This is a new rule." The leader of the guards said blindly, but he couldn't help but think in his heart. Others can choose not to ask, but you, a dangerous terrorist, can't not ask. "Oh, I'm going into the city to look for the Guild of Quests. I have a quest to issue." Hearing the guard's words, Lung Ruoxia was kind and did not expose him. Instead, she cooperated and took the initiative to explain. When he heard that Lung Ruoxia was here to issue a mission to the guild, the guard leader was instantly relieved. However, after he calmed down, he felt that something was not quite right. Wait a minute. You don't have to come to Imperial City to issue a mission, right? One had to know that branch guilds for missions were everywhere in the Divine Realm. Why did he have to come here? With that thought, the guard leader began to doubt Lung Ruoxia's motive and asked, "The guild has quests everywhere. Why did you come to Imperial City?" These words were met with Lung Ruoxia's extremely disdainful gaze. Following that, the guard leader heard Lung Ruoxia sneer. "My mission level is too high, so I can only come to the headquarters. If it wasn't for the fact that the mission was always in U City, I really wouldn't want to come here. Why don't you suggest that we change the location of the mission headquarters? If that's the case, I wouldn't have come." Always changing places? Did he dare to mention it? The leader of the guards was incited by Lung Ruoxia's words and instantly wilted. He explained with a smile, I just wanted to ask more clearly. I don't have any other meaning. Who asked you to be a terrorist?" He had to be on guard. "I understand. I know that my relationship with Rime Ice has given you a headache in the past, but please believe in my sincerity. This time, I came to Imperial City only to find the Mission Guild to issue a mission." Lung Ruoxia was very understanding. The expression on her beautiful face was so sincere, causing the guard leader to feel guilty. He truly felt that he shouldn't have suspected Lung Ruoxia. If she really wanted to cause trouble, would she have obediently entered the city through the city gate? However, even if he believed Lung Ruoxia's words, he didn't dare to make the decision to let her into the Imperial City. He could only smile carefully and say, "Miss Lung, I can't make the decision if you want to enter the city. You have to go back and ask for instructions. Can you please wait for a moment?" "Sure." Lung Ruoxia smiled and nodded. At the same time, she transmitted a message to Azure. "Song, do you see? They don't trust us and are not willing to let us enter the city. Calm down. They won't dare to offend us at this time, so don't worry. They'll let us in." Azure said with confidence. Seeing how confident Song was, Lung Ruoxua naturally didn't say anything more. However, after the guard leader sent the news of Lung Ruoxia's arrival at the imperial city back to the Divine Master's residence, it caused everyone in the Divine Master's residence to be in a state of panic. When Xia Yi and the other two hierarchs saw this, they could only hold an emergency meeting to discuss this matter. However, after a long discussion, they still could not come to a conclusion. Not only were their opinions unable to reach a consensus, but they were also divided into several groups. There were those who agreed to let Lung Ruoxua into the city to settle some matters, and there were also those who requested to reject her. There were even those who maintained a neutral stance. The number of people in these three groups was similar, so it was difficult to make a final decision in a short time. In the end, Xia Yi and the other two Reverent God-level experts were left with no choice. According to their original intention, they could let Lung Ruoxua into the imperial city. However, as the Reverent God of the Divine Master's estate, her every word and action would attract too much attention. Hence, they could not voice their opinions at will. Otherwise, they might even incur the Divine Master's dissatisfaction. After thinking for a long time, the three Reverent Gods unanimously decided to let the Divine Master make the decision. After sending a guard to inform the black-robed man who was guarding the entrance of the Divine Master's secret room, Xia Yi and the other two felt that their mission was complete, and went back to their own business. When the man in black found out that Lung Ruoxua had come to Imperial City, his first thought was that this was a matter of great importance. In addition, the Divine Master had said before he went into seclusion to heal his injuries that unless it was an extremely important matter, he was not to disturb her. Chapter 2709, Madam, I'm sorry 3. The man in black was naturally aware of the grudges between the Divine Master and Lung Ruoxua. Hence, after sensing that the situation was extremely troublesome, he immediately entered the secret chamber for further instructions. Wu Yan's face was pale. She was sucking blood to heal her injuries. When she heard that Lung Ruoxua had come to the imperial city, she was so agitated that she spat out a mouthful of blood. The man in black was so frightened that he knelt down immediately. Humph. She still dared to come here? You're really not afraid of death. Wu Mo's small face was pale and bloodless. She narrowed her beautiful eyes and said with some resentment, if it wasn't for Lung Ruoxua, how would she be injured? If it wasn't for Tsong's provocation, how could her injuries have worsened? But now not only did those people not know how to hide, but they also dared to approach her. They were really tired of living. Miss gritted her teeth in hatred, and at the same time, a bone-piercing pain came from the bottom of her heart, causing her face to turn even paler. How detestable! If she wasn't injured, she would have captured Lung Ruoxua and tortured her in every way possible before sucking her fresh blood dry. She believed that Lung Ruoxia's blood would be even more perfect than the blood lotus flower, since she had the chaotic divine body. However, she could only think about it now. She hated it. Delicious food was right in front of her, but she couldn't get it. If this happened to anyone, it would definitely be a fatal blow. But now, she had no choice but to endure. This was because she was very clear about her own situation. Even though that person had left the God world, she had Song to protect her. She could not do anything to Lung Ruoxua. Ah! Wu Yan lost her mind and roared madly. Her embarrassment turned into anger, and her face was twisted with hatred. The kneeling man in black was so scared that his whole body began to tremble. Suddenly, 2 vines with suction cups flew out of Ripple's hands and stabbed into the man's body. The man in black revealed a pained expression, but before he could scream, the man in black stopped breathing in a few seconds. After a few minutes, the man in black turned into dust and disappeared without a trace. After venting her anger, Wu Yan gradually calmed down. Then she shouted towards the outside of the secret room, "Men, please give your orders, master." Another man in black walked in. After this black-clothed man entered the secret room, he didn't see the person who had entered before. He had already guessed that the person was most likely dead. Let Lung Ruoxua into the city and send people to keep a close watch on her. Wu Xian gritted his teeth and said, she had thought it through. Even if she forbade Lung Ruoxua from entering the imperial city, it would be useless. Not only would that fellow not listen to her, he might even force his way in. At this moment, it was obvious that he had no way of intimidating Lung Ruoxue. Since that was the case, why not fulfill her wish? Lung Ruoxue wouldn't be able to cause any big waves in his territory anyway. Wu Yan was very confident in her control of the imperial city. Otherwise, she would not have dared to make such a decision. The man in black received the order, and immediately turned to leave. At the same time, Lung Ruoxue was already getting impatient from waiting outside the city gates. Your godlord's estate's efficiency is so low. It's been so long, and you still haven't come to a conclusion? Lung Ruoxue's face was filled with dissatisfaction. After she finished speaking, she even took a bite of the fruit in her hand. At this moment, she would not just stand there and wait like a fool. Instead, she had already taken out a reclining chair, a pot of tea, fruits, snacks, and other food. She ate while waiting. Seeing her like this, the guards who heard her words were all speechless. Many of the guards couldn't help but mutter to themselves, "This ancestor. You're eating and drinking. What's wrong with waiting?" He wasn't tired. Unlike them, not only were they exposed to the scorching sun, but they also had to endure the immense pressure from Lung Ruoxue and the little kitten. They were on the verge of a mental breakdown. Of course, no one dared to say this out loud. Otherwise, they would all die. However, they didn't have to wait for too long before news came from the Divine Master's estate. They had agreed to let Lung Ruoxue into the city. Hearing this, Azure smiled proudly. "Girl, I told you that this mist ripple slut knows her own limits. Yes, we're here to do something, not to find trouble. Why can't she let us enter the city?" Lung Ruoxue chimed in with a smile. The guards couldn't bear to listen to their conversation. After all, they were members of the Divine Master's estate. How could they listen to him calling the Divine Master a bitch in front of them? At this moment, they wished they had calluses in their ears. Otherwise, if the Divine Master knew about this, he would kill them to silence them. Sop. They truly felt that guarding the door was a life-threatening job. The guards who were cheering in their hearts excitedly sent off Lung Ruoxue and Song's team. Their eyes were filled with tears as they cheered in their hearts. They had finally sent away the terrifying woman and beast. It wasn't easy. After entering the city, Lung Ruoxue, who was walking on the streets of Yu City, could clearly feel that someone was following them in the dark. However, she did not pay much attention to it, and continued to walk calmly on the busy streets. She couldn't be blamed for being so calm. After walking in the city for a while, almost all the passers-by in the city were watching them, so they could only force her to calm down. When they finally reached the headquarters, Lung Ruoxue saw the main doors and quickly entered. "May I know what you need help with?" When the waiter sensed that someone had entered, he gave a standard welcome speech. However, the moment he saw Lung Ruoxue's beautiful face, he forcefully swallowed the last few words. Thanks, it wasn't because of how beautiful she was, but because she was the famous Lung Ruoxue. Oh my God. Lung Ruoxue. What was Lung Ruoxue doing here? He didn't see wrong, did he? The waiter's eyes widened in disbelief. He was afraid that his eyes were playing tricks on him, so he even rubbed his eyes vigorously. In the end, he realized that Lung Ruoxue was still standing in front of him with a smile. With a bitter smile, the waiter stuttered. Miss Lung H. Welcome, please, may I ask?" After speaking for a long time, the waiter still couldn't say a complete sentence. His small face was red from holding back, and he was extremely anxious. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she only smiled faintly and said, "I want to see your president." It was said that the current president of the mission headquarters was definitely a confidant of Fog Ice, and was very loyal to Fog Ice. Sometimes, it seemed that his status was even higher than the 3 reverent god-level experts in the Divine Master's estate. Hence, when she found out about this, Lung Ruoxue was especially interested in this president of the headquarters. However, when the waiter heard this, he said with an awkward expression, "It's not convenient for the guild leader to meet with guests right now. What's wrong? Did you get beaten up?" Lung Ruoxue guessed. The waiter was speechless. He thought to himself, "Miss Lung, do you have a grudge against my guild leader? Can't you think of something better?" However, the waiter couldn't deny that this Miss Lung's guess was really accurate. Although the president wasn't really beaten up, he was almost beaten up. After thinking for a while, the waiter hesitated and said, "The guild leader wasn't beaten up. He's just sick." "You're sick?" "I'm the best at treating illnesses. Let me take a look at him." The moment Lung Ruoxua heard that there was a patient, she immediately perked up. The waiter didn't know what to say. Didn't they say that Lung Ruoxua didn't like to meddle in other people's business? Why was the other party's current performance so different from the legends? "It's settled then. Take me to your president, I'll treat him." Lung Ruoxua couldn't help but urge the waiter when she saw him standing there in a daze. "Miss Lung knows how to treat illnesses?" The waiter looked at Lung Ruoxua in disbelief. "Ancestral secret recipe, guaranteed to cure all diseases," Lung Ruoxua said with the air of a quack. "But my president's illness is not an ordinary illness." As the waiter spoke, his face revealed a look of sympathy. "Then what are we waiting for? Quickly take me to your president. I promise to cure him." Lung Ruoxua promised seriously. However, the waiter's gaze was still filled with distrust. Seeing this, Lung Ruoxua felt a little hurt. She looked at the waiter with hidden bitterness, causing the waiter's heart to beat wildly. Just as Lung Ruoxua was about to force the waiter to bring her to meet a certain president, the waiter could not stand the pressure from Lung Ruoxua's beautiful eyes and said, "I'll take you to the president." Hearing this, Lung Ruoxua was elated. He followed behind the waiter. The waiter brought Lung Ruoxua out of the headquarters and turned to the back door. After entering from the back door, they took 2 more turns and finally, they arrived at a small, desolate courtyard in the back of the headquarters. Pointing at the small courtyard, the waiter said in a low voice, "The guild leader is inside. You can go in by yourself. I won't be accompanying you." With that, the waiter immediately left. Before he left, he looked around as if he was afraid that someone would discover that he had brought Lung Ruoxua here. Seeing that the waiter was acting sneaky, Lung Ruoxua even suspected that the waiter was lying to her. However, she soon heard a slight sound coming from a room in the courtyard. It sounded like a soft cry of pain. As he walked closer to the room, the pained cries grew louder. "Io! Io!" The sound continued to enter his ears. Lung Ruoxua was stunned for a moment. Then, she pushed open the half-closed door and walked in. The room was not big. Other than a few chairs in the room, there was not a single decent piece of furniture. A man with his back facing them was sitting on a chair, his buttocks slightly jerking, looking like he was in great pain. The painful cry had come from his mouth. Sensing that someone had entered, the man with his back to the door suddenly turned around and begged for mercy. "Madam, I know I was wrong. I won't dare to do it again." Chapter 27:10. Heroes Among Women 1. The 2 of them were stunned. The man who spoke was dumbfounded, while Lung Ruoxua was speechless and shocked. Who was this pighead? Could he be the guild leader of the headquarters of the Missions Guild? At this moment, the face of the man in front of her was so swollen that one could not even see his true appearance. His eyes were only a slit, and his lips looked like 2 fat sausages hanging from them. When she saw this image not far away, Lung Ruoxua could not help but sigh. The person who created this image was really ruthless. "Are you Miaojia, the president of the Missions Guild?" Lung Ruoxua probed. She really could not believe that the pighead in front of her was the famous Miaojia. "Why yes. Lung Ruoxua. What are you doing here?" Miaojia was shocked. He was extremely shocked. He could not figure out why Lung Ruoxua would come here, and even see him in this state. Sob. This was too embarrassing. At that moment, Miaojia wished he could just kill himself. It was much better than Lung Ruoxua seeing his embarrassing state. Seeing Miaojia's apocalyptic look, Lung Ruoxua smiled and consoled him. "President Miao, you don't have to feel embarrassed. Who doesn't have a tiger at home? AI. In this day and age, being afraid of one's wife was the way to go. So your choice is wise." How did you know?" Miaojia tried his best to open his eyes wide to express his shock, but unfortunately, his eyes were swollen. No matter how hard he tried, there was only a thin slit. However, his subtle expression at this time completely revealed his inner thoughts. He would never believe that someone would dare to tell Lung Ruoxua about his family's matters. How did she guess that there was a tigress in his family? Could it be that Lung Ruoxue had been monitoring him all along? That's why she knew everything about him. Miao Jie made wild guesses. Lung Ruoxue, on the other hand, could tell what he was thinking with a single glance. At the same time, she could not understand how a person who did not even know how to hide his expression could become the president of the headquarters of missions. Could it be that the rumors were true, that he and Wu Yan had an unclear relationship? Lung Ruoxue felt that this was not impossible. After sighing, she replied honestly, "I'm guessing." Miao Jie's face revealed an expression of obvious distrust. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. Why didn't the people from the headquarters trust her? She was very honest, okay? AI. The scars on your face are too obvious. I'm a woman, and I know that only women like to create such scars on their men to make them behave. I'm sure President Miao Jie isn't someone who can't keep his head down, right? Otherwise, your wife wouldn't have treated you like this. After being depressed for a while, Lung Ruoxue gloated. Who said that? Don't wrong me. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Miao Jie was completely enraged. Ooh, there's a tigress at home. How would he dare to mess around? Look, this wasn't even a big deal. He had been beaten up so badly that he could not see anyone. If he really did something, he was afraid that his little life would be lost. It doesn't matter if I wronged you or not, right? The key is whether your madam believes you or not. Lung Ruoxue reminded him. After she said that, Miao Jie was completely listless. Sob. It was because madam didn't believe in his innocence that he was beaten up like this. Thanks, Miao Jie complained in his heart. All of a sudden, he had a flash of inspiration. His eyes, which were swollen to the point of a slit, burst out with a dazzling light. He looked at Lung Ruoxue with anticipation and said, Lung Ruoxue, you're a woman too. Can you help me? What can I help you with? Lung Ruoxue was taken aback. She truly felt that Miao Jie's train of thought was too erratic. When they first met, he was still shocked and alert. How could he ask her to help him in such a short time? Help me think of a way to make my madam believe me. No matter how I tried to explain, she wouldn't believe me. I'm really going to die. As if he had found someone to confide in, Miao Jie started to cry in front of Lung Ruoxue. Lung Ruoxue was a little speechless when she saw Miao Jie sobbing and treating her like a close sister. However, she still kindly reminded him. Your wife doesn't believe you. It must be because you're untrustworthy. After saying that, Lung Ruoxue deliberately paused for a few seconds to look at Miao Jie's expectant eyes. Then she continued. Actually, I'm not very good at dealing with family problems. Besides, I have something important to tell you. What is it? As long as you help me solve my problems, I will help you deal with your own. Miao Jie immediately coaxed him. Really? Lung Ruoxue blinked her eyes and asked with a smile. Of course. It had to be real. Just help me. As long as you can find a way to make the tigress at home believe me, then you're my savior. Miao Jie began to flatter Lung Ruoxue. However, Lung Ruoxue was not a 3-year-old child. She would not easily believe Miao Jie's promise, so she did not say anything. Instead, she grabbed an old chair not far away, cleaned the dust and sat down. Looking at Lung Ruoxue's nonchalant actions, Miao Jie felt a little worried. After choking for a while, Miao Jie began to persuade again. Lung Ruoxue, please help me think of a way. I'm really at my wit's end. If I had any tricks up my sleeve, I wouldn't have come to you for help. I told you I'm not good at dealing with family problems. Why are you looking for me? Lung Ruoxue continued to put on a cold and noble look. Didn't you just make it in time? If I look for someone else instead of you, I'll lose face again. Miao Jie's words sounded like he was going all out, but Lung Ruoxue was speechless. So it wasn't embarrassing to ask her for help. Just because she had already seen the other party's embarrassing state? AI. What the hell is this? Actually, Lung Ruoxue was quite happy to see Miao Jie in trouble. Although that guy was not related to him, he was still a member of Fog City. She was happy that the people of Fog City were unlucky. However, she didn't forget why she was here. So she put on a thoughtful look. After thinking for a while, she said to Miao Jie, It's not that I can't help you think of a way, but can you really help me solve my problem? Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Miao Jie suddenly felt that he had made his promise too early. With this thought in mind, he carefully asked, "What do you want to see me for?" "Secret. Tell me first if you can help me solve it." Lung Ruoxue wasn't that stupid to tell him her thoughts right now. What if this guy went back on his word? As long as you don't ask me to do anything like murder or arson, I don't think there's any problem. After hesitating for a while, Miao Jie probed, "Don't worry, I won't let you kill or set fire." Lung Ruoxue's solemn promise was only for him to act as a middleman and earn some pocket money for her. Chapter 27:11. Heroes among women too. If that's the case, I promise I can do it. Miao Jie's confidence was greatly boosted. Yes, although I believe in your integrity, it's better for you to make an oath. Lung Ruoxue suggested calmly. You still need to swear? Miao Jie was surprised. Lung Ruoxue did not believe him either. However, the two sides were enemies, so it seemed natural that she didn't believe him. Without waiting for Lung Ruoxue's explanation, Miao Jie started to fill in the gaps. Seeing Lung Ruoxue nod her head, even though he was unwilling, he still followed her instructions and made an oath. After the contract's rules confirmed it, the deal of help between the two of them was officially established. After finishing this step, Miao Jie began to urge Lung Ruoxue to help him find a way to deal with the tigress at home as soon as possible. Lung Ruoxue nodded calmly and asked Miao Jie about the habits of the tigers in his family. When Miao Jie heard Lung Ruoxue's question, he naturally did not say anything and did not hold back. He explained everything in detail, and the only thing he was short of explaining was the color of his wife's undergarments. Just as Miao Jie was talking so much that Lung Ruoxue could not stop him, a furious roar suddenly came from outside the door. "Miao Jie, you're good. Even in this state, you still don't forget to hook up with little girls. I think you're really tired of living." As soon as he finished speaking, a tall, burly, and rough-looking woman broke into the room. She was carrying a shoulder pole as thick as an adult's arm. Without saying a word, she smashed it towards Miao Jie's head. Lung Ruoxue barely dodged this attack. As she watched the shoulder pole smashing towards Miao Jie, she couldn't help but break out in a cold sweat for him. Ruthless. How ruthless. One look at this heroine, and one could tell that she was a strong man with infinite strength. She wondered if Miao Jie's small body could take the blow with the carrying pole. However, just as Lung Ruoxue thought that the pole was going to hit Miao Jie's head, it suddenly changed direction and hit the place where Miao Jie had the most flesh on his body. In an instant, a ghostly cry and wolf's howl could be heard. Pa, pa, pa. After a few hits, Miao Jie was knocked out. At this moment, the intrepid woman stopped and turned to look at Lung Ruoxue. She was even sizing her up. The woman stared at Lung Ruoxue for a long time, causing Lung Ruoxue's heart to be in turmoil. Just as Lung Ruoxue was afraid that the woman would lose her cool and give her a few shoulder pulls, the woman suddenly spoke. "You look familiar. Do I know you?" "I don't think so." Lung Ruoxue could not help but wipe away the cold sweat on her forehead. This woman's personality was just as she had portrayed herself to be, straightforward and straightforward. "But you really do look very familiar. The woman you did not give up. We're meeting for the first time today," Lung Ruoxue reminded. "I know. I just thought you looked familiar. He didn't say he had seen you." The woman seemed to be talking to herself. Lung Ruoxue was speechless. She had misunderstood. Following that, Lung Ruoxue heard the woman say, "Ai, why would a woman make things difficult for another woman? Although I don't know why you're here, don't worry, I won't hit you. Even if I have to deal with someone, I'll be my man. Thank you for being so understanding." Lung Ruoxue's mouth twitched as she replied, "Thanks, you're welcome. I just feel that you shouldn't be interested in my man. He's short, ugly, and as timid as a mouse. There are many men in the divine realm who are stronger than him. How could a beauty like you be interested in him, right?" The woman continued. Lung Ruoxue didn't know how to respond to his words. She felt that this woman was very smart. On the surface, she had elevated what seemed to be her love rival and ridiculed her own man. However, in reality, her method of doing things without shedding blood had indeed caused many proud women to retreat. As for those who couldn't be returned, They were naturally those who couldn't be shown in public. At that time, this woman could do whatever she wanted. The woman in front of him could be said to be meticulous even in her rough ways. No wonder Miao Jia, the president of the mission headquarters, was so easily controlled by her. However, in order to reassure the lady, Leng Ruoxue explained calmly, I already have a fiancé. Oh, hee. Congratulations. The woman was even happier when she heard that. After she said that, she tried to probe Leng Ruoxue's intention. Leng Ruoxue had no choice but to tell her about the deal she had made with Miao Jia. When the woman heard this, she treated Leng Ruoxue as one of her own and took it upon herself. Miss, if you have any difficulties, just tell me directly. There's no need to look for him. I'll definitely help you solve it. This way, she could also prevent this beauty from coming into contact with her man. My difficulties. I have to solve the problem between the two of you first before President Miao can help me deal with it. Leng Ruoxue reminded. No need to wait for him. Just tell me directly and I'll solve it. I guarantee you'll be satisfied. The fierce-looking woman patted her chest and promised. Are you sure the people from the headquarters will listen to you? Leng Ruoxue pretended to be in disbelief as she widened her eyes and asked. I'm the president's wife of the headquarters of the Missions Guild. How dare they disobey me? Whoever doesn't listen to me will spread pillow talk to my man. And I guarantee that the other party will have to bear the consequences. The woman said with confidence. Her man was henpecked, and this was not a big secret in the mission headquarters. If that's the case, I'll just tell you directly. Leng Ruoxue blinked her beautiful eyes and said with an innocent and uncertain expression. Yes, you can just tell me. In the future, if you have any problems, you can come to me directly. There's no need to look for this guy. The woman reminded. But I haven't settled your problem yet. After some thought, Leng Ruoxue hesitated. What do we have to do? We're fine. You can see how close we are, right? The woman asked, her eyes wide open. Leng Ruoxue took a look at the woman's rough appearance, and then glanced at the unconscious Miao Jia. She could only brace herself and nod her head. This was probably the so-called beating is affection, scolding is love. This woman must be in love with Miao Jia. Leng Ruoxue came to an important conclusion, and then threw Miao Jia to the side. She smiled at the woman and said, I want to put a bounty on a person, is that okay? Who's the bounty? I'll give you a 20% discount. The woman was very satisfied with Leng Ruoxue's tactfulness, and her impression of her became even better. Thank you, sister. I want the reward to be fog ice. Leng Ruoxue said calmly. Who do you want to put a bounty on? The woman thought she had heard wrong, so she asked again. Wu Yan, I want to put a bounty on Wu Yan. Although I have put a bounty on her once in the divine realm, the effect didn't seem to be very good. Until now, I haven't heard of anyone successfully completing the mission. Therefore, I would like to officially issue a mission in the Mission Guild to officially put a bounty on Raimeis. At the same time, I want to let all the major powers in the divine realm know of my sincerity. I'm not going to be stingy with my reward. Leng Ruoxue explained with a serious expression. Chapter 27:12. Heroes Among Women 3. The woman didn't say a word for a long time after hearing this. She was completely stunned. This little girl actually wanted to put a bounty on God Lord Mist Ripple? She was simply too bold, wasn't she? From what she knew, Leng Ruoxue was the only one in the entire God world who had done such a thing. Wait a minute. Leng Ruoxue. This young lady was Leng Ruoxue? The lady tried to hide her shock as she sized up Leng Ruoxue again. Finally, she asked carefully. Why, you're Leng Ruoxue? Yup. Big sister finally recognized it. Leng Ruoxue smiled sweetly and nodded. When the woman heard this, she was completely resentful. What did she do? He actually treated Leng Ruoxue as a love rival. This really shouldn't have happened. She was so regretful that her intestines turned green. In the next second, the woman suddenly grabbed Leng Ruoxue's jade-like hand tightly and said agitatedly, My idol! I finally have the chance to see one alive today. What's the situation? Leng Ruoxue was dumbfounded. This woman's performance was too frightening. Normally, Shouldn't she be regretful and fearful for recognizing him? How could he be so different? From what she said, she even saw him as an idol. If these words were to be heard by Wuxian, Leng Ruoxue was very curious as to what she would think. But now, Leng Ruoxue felt that it was more important to deal with this intrepid woman in front of her. After half a minute of silence, Leng Ruoxue could not help but remind him. Your man is the guild master of the headquarters of the Mission's Guild. And he's one of Rime Ice's men. I have a deep hatred for Rime Ice, so it's not very good for you to worship me like this, right? What's not good about it? Who can care about what I think? I'm telling you, ever since I heard of your deeds, I've always yearned for you and have been friends with you for a long time. Now that I've suddenly seen you in person in front of me, I'm so happy. As the woman spoke, she even began to dance with joy. Leng Ruoxue broke out in a cold sweat. She was speechless and asked, Aren't you afraid that your words will reach the ears of the mist? I'm not afraid. I've never been afraid of her. The woman said disapprovingly. However, if you want to put a bounty on her in the headquarters, it seems a little troublesome. The woman then added. Leng Ruoxue nodded to show that she understood. In reality, the bounty on the miasma was just a temporary measure. She had long known that the mission headquarters would not issue such a bounty for her, so this was originally just an excuse. Subduing the mission headquarters was her real goal. But now, when she saw the woman's sincerity and her expression of wanting to help her, she didn't know how to respond. However, it was impossible for her to soften her heart and let go of the mission. After some thought, Leng Ruoxue insisted. I have to put a bounty on Rime at the headquarters, or no one will believe my sincerity. So it was like this. However, it's impossible for you to publish this mission in the headquarters. Why don't you ask the Dark Clan? The woman suggested after thinking for a while. Dark Clan. Leng Ruoxue blinked her eyes. This wasn't the first time she had heard of this term. She had even seen people from the Dark Clan before. However, that was only on the Divine Mainland. She had never seen anyone from the Dark Clan in the Divine World. The Dark Family is like an underground organization that specializes in doing some shady things. There won't be any problem if you leave this matter to them. The woman promised. I'm doing this in an open and above-board manner. Leng Ruoxue couldn't help but remind the woman after hearing her words. This wasn't something shameful. She dared to provoke Fog Ice, so she wasn't afraid of being found out. I know. What I mean is, as long as you can afford it, there's nothing Dark Family can't do. The woman quickly changed her words. I still have to pay. Leng Ruoxue furrowed her brows, her expression conflicted. If you don't pay, they won't do anything for you. After being speechless for a while, the woman said, By the way, didn't you just say that as long as you can afford it, there's nothing they can't do? Leng Ruoxue confirmed. Yes. The woman gritted her teeth. She didn't know why, but after saying a simple word, she suddenly felt like she had shot herself in the foot. And reality proved that her premonition was accurate. After Leng Ruoxue confirmed, she immediately replied in a light tone. Then I'll pay for them to kill Rime Ice. Thanks they couldn't do this. Ancestor. The woman burst into tears upon hearing this. She wanted to kneel down in front of Leng Ruoxue. They can help you with anything other than this. After a long time, the woman finally came back to her senses and said with a bitter face, But this is the only thing I need them to do. I can solve the rest by myself. Leng Ruoxue said with a face of dissatisfaction. Ancestor, they really can't do this. The woman said helplessly. Then why did you say there's nothing they can't do? Wouldn't that be misleading the consumers? Is there any place to complain about them? Leng Ruoxue said in a serious tone. Upon hearing this, the woman knelt down beside Leng Ruoxue's feet with a thump. She hugged Leng Ruoxue's leg and howled. Ancestor, I said the wrong thing. Can you not be like this? Woo-woo. Seeing this, Leng Ruoxue broke out in cold sweat. Did it have to be so exaggerated? She had only found fault with her and made a small joke. How could this woman be so scared? A sin. I've sinned. Leng Ruoxue laughed in her heart, but she still put on an innocent face and said, It seems that the so-called Dark Family doesn't have much workability. Forget it, I'll just find the mission headquarters. The mission headquarters won't be able to accept your mission. The woman's eyes were filled with tears as she spoke pitifully. Do you not want to answer, or can't? Lung Ruoxue asked seriously. Is there a difference? The woman was speechless. Of course there is. If you don't want to answer it, it means you can answer it but you don't want to answer it. If you can't answer it, it means you can't answer it at all. Do you think there's a difference? Lung Ruoxue deliberately emphasized on her words, confusing the woman. In the end, the woman gave up on arguing with Lung Ruoxue and told her directly, your mission. The mission will always be something you don't want to accept, and you can't accept. Otherwise, whoever receives it will be in trouble. I see. It seems like I can only use force. Lung Ruoxue nodded to show that she understood. This was exactly what she wanted. Who should I use force on? At this moment, a voice interrupted their conversation. When the woman saw that Miao Jie had woken up, she was about to flare up again. However, she suddenly remembered that Lung Ruoxue was still around, so she quickly pulled Miao Jie into her arms. The man was hers, and she did not wish for her man to become an unlucky person for Lung Ruoxue to vent her anger on. Miao Jie grimaced in pain from her sudden pull, but he didn't dare to resist and let his wife hold him. Seeing that Miao Jie had woken up, Lung Ruoxue smiled and asked with concern. You're awake? Does it still hurt? I was just talking about you with your madam. Is that so? Miao Jie was overjoyed. He could feel that his wife had become much gentler to him. He was ready to fulfill his promise. He smiled at Lung Ruoxue and said, what do you want to talk to me about? As long as it's not murder or arson, there's no problem. Miao Jie's promise made the woman worried. However, before she could stop him, her stupid man had already asked Lung Ruoxue to make her request. What a woman's heart! Instantly, it was in his throat. However, Miao Jie didn't notice the woman's nervousness and asked again. By the way, who did you say you were going to use force on? The mission headquarters. Lung Ruoxue smiled and answered. Who is it? Miao Jie tried his best to open his swollen eyes wide, thinking that there was something wrong with his ears. Then he tugged at his wife's sleeve and whispered, Madam, pinch me. Am I hearing things? You're not hallucinating. She wants to put a bounty on Rhyme, and if the mission is always rejected, she's prepared to use force. The woman shouted at Miao Jie in exasperation. After that she pinched his butt hard, causing Miao Jie to wail in pain. This caused him to be even more injured. Miao Jie's heart trembled as he turned to look at Lung Ruoxue with a pale face. You want to put a bounty on the God Lord of Rhyme Mist? Wrong, I want to put a bounty on that fog ripple bitch. Lung Ruoxue corrected him with a smile. Miao Jie was confused and asked, what if I don't agree? Didn't your wife tell you? If you don't agree, I'll use force. At that time, your mission will. You know what I mean? Lung Ruoxue's words were definitely a threat. Miao Jie's face turned even paler in fear. And even the woman felt a little uncomfortable. At this moment, she truly felt how terrifying Lung Ruoxue was. Previously, when he talked and laughed with her, he was probably purely making fun of her. Woo. For the first time, she felt that she had kicked an iron plate. But at the same time, he was also glad that he had not done anything to offend Lung Ruoxue. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. You really dare? This is the Imperial City, and the Divine Master is in the Divine Master's estate. If you act rashly, she won't let you off. After panicking for a while, Miao Jie miraculously calmed down. He hoped that he could convince Lung Ruoxue to give up on that idea. After all, this was the Divine Master's territory. Not everyone could do whatever they wanted. Who knew that when Lung Ruoxue heard this, she only smiled faintly and said, why would I not dare? Since I dared to come here, I've naturally made all the necessary preparations. So what if it's Imperial City? So what if Wuxia was in the Divine Master's estate? Do you know how badly she's hurt? To tell you the truth, she doesn't have the energy to catch me even if she wanted to, because she's hiding in a secret room in the Divine Master's estate to recuperate. Sir Divine Master is injured. Hearing this, Miao Jie and the woman were shocked and said in unison. Chapter 27:13. just looking, not saying. Word 1. Don't you guys know? Lung Ruoxue asked in surprise when she heard what the two of them said. She didn't expect that Wu Yan would keep it a secret so well that even her legendary confidant didn't know about her injury. However, Lung Ruoxue could understand it after thinking about it. After all, this was not something to be proud of. It would be bad if too many people knew about it. After listening to Lung Ruoxue's words, the two of them shook their heads like rattledrums. Both of them had a blank and helpless expression on their faces. However, upon closer inspection, their expressions were slightly different. Miao Jie was slightly worried, while the woman seemed to be gloating. After discovering this interesting fact, Lung Ruoxue said to Miao Jie sympathetically, "President Miao, aren't you the confidant of that bitch, Ripple? Don't tell me that you don't know about her leading her men to attack us." This, Miao Jie revealed a constipated expression and was in a dilemma. How was he supposed to answer this? He knew. Of course he knew. He also knew that the result of the attack wasn't too satisfactory, but he didn't know the details. In addition, after the people who went with Lady Fog Ripple to the land of demons returned, they all had an unfathomable expression and didn't talk about anything. It made it impossible for him to get any information. And now, the news of Lady Fog being injured came from the mouth of the enemy. Wait a minute. Was Lung Ruoxue lying to him? With a suspicious expression, Miao Jie could not help but look at Lung Ruoxue. To be honest, he did not believe Lung Ruoxue's words at all. However, he didn't dare to question it too much. Otherwise, if he angered this ancestor, he would be the one in trouble. He truly felt that now that he had angered Lung Ruoxue, even if the Divine Master was in the residence, he would not be able to save her. Hence, he thought he was very obedient and treated Lung Ruoxue with respect. However, that flash of suspicion did not escape Lung Ruoxue's eyes. Lung Ruoxue laughed nonchalantly. "I know you don't believe me, but do you think that I have the courage to come to you city? Why would I lie to you?" After saying this, Lung Ruoxue fell silent. When Miao Jie and his wife heard this, they looked at each other and communicated with their eyes. It had to be said that both of them believed Lung Ruoxue's words. If God Lord Fog Ripple was truly as Lung Ruoxue had said and was heavily injured, then they really had to worship Lung Ruoxue. Otherwise, if Lung Ruoxue were to make a move out of embarrassment, no one would be able to stop her. After thinking about it, Miao Jie calmed his mind and said, "I believe in Miss Lung's words, and am also grateful for everything you've done for the harmony between us husband and wife. However, our mission guild really can't agree to your request, so I hope you don't make things difficult for me." Miao Jie's words were very sincere. Lung Ruoxue, on the other hand, laughed calmly. "I didn't do anything for the harmony between you and your wife. At the same time, I've said that if you don't agree, I'll have to use force. So please don't make things difficult for me. It'll be great if you cooperate, and we'll all be happy, right? To everyone's satisfaction, my ass. You're the one who's happy, aren't you?" Miao Jie's heart was filled with grief and indignation, but he put on an indifferent expression on his face and said, "Miss Lung, this request of yours is really difficult for me." "It's not difficult at all. You just have to make a choice. Whether it's okay or not, just say it." Lung Ruoxue urged. "I can't make the decision on my own. I need to discuss it with the vice president and the elders." After thinking for a while, Miao Jie thought of a way to delay. Lung Ruoxue nodded in agreement and requested, "There's no problem with the discussion, but I want to be an audience." This, no way. Miao Jie was very depressed. If Lung Ruoxue were to listen, would their meeting still be able to continue? Thanks, however, he didn't know how to stop Lung Ruoxue. Looking at how determined she was, he was also afraid that if he was too unyielding, it would backfire. "Idle, it's fine to let you listen, but no matter what the opinions of the people at the meeting are, you can't be angry." A wife knew her husband best. The tough woman who understood Miao Jie's thoughts immediately put forward her conditions. "No problem, I won't say a word. You just need to discuss and come up with a result." Lung Ruoxue was very understanding. In fact, she agreed to the meeting only because she wanted to save time. After all, the mission headquarters was different from the branch. There were countless vice presidents, elders, and other higher-ups here. If she were to subdue them one by one, she might be exhausted to death. If any of the higher-ups escaped, it would definitely be detrimental to the work of the spies in the headquarters. That was why Lung Ruoxue wanted to get rid of all the higher-ups in the headquarters in one go. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue had agreed, Miao Jie's heart that was in his throat could finally be slightly at ease. However, the fierce-looking woman was not as open-minded as Miao Jie. She felt that this might be the beginning of a disaster for missions. As the president's wife of the headquarters, she was calmer than Miao Jie at all times. However, she did not have the ability to stop Lung Ruoxue from taking action against the headquarters. After giving Miao Jie a few days to prepare for the meeting, the woman arranged for Lung Ruoxue to stay in the best guest house in the mission headquarters. She even came over every day to chat with Lung Ruoxue and strengthen their relationship. This was also a chance for her man to be lenient. At least, that was what she thought. As for Lung Ruoxue, she did not seem too happy about the appearance of the lady, but she was not too cold either. The two of them were chatting casually. Suddenly Lung Ruoxue asked the lady, "How's your man's injury?" "He's already fine. Because there's something important to do. I gave him a healing medicinal pill. He's now alive and kicking again," the woman said with embarrassment. When she said this, her cheeks were slightly red. Lung Ruoxue looked at the woman in shock and disbelief. She originally thought that the woman would let Miao Jie's pig-like face recover naturally. After all, everyone in the mission headquarters knew that their president had been beaten up by the president's wife again. The woman felt even more embarrassed under Lung Ruoxue's gaze. She took the initiative and said, "Idle, it's boring to stay in the yard all day. Why don't we go out for a walk?" "Yeah, I haven't had a good tour of the headquarters yet." Lung Ruoxue nodded in agreement. She stood up and allowed the lady to bring her around the spacious and luxurious courtyard of the headquarters. As he walked, a woman's voice suddenly came from behind a rock by the side of the courtyard's path. "Guild leader, why are you always avoiding me?" Hearing this, the intrepid woman was immediately enraged. Taking out her weapon, which was her carrying pole, the tall and sturdy woman immediately turned into a fierce gust of wind, whistling and blowing behind the rockery. Then, Lung Ruoxue heard a series of ghostly wails and wolf howls coming from behind the fake mountain. Sighing helplessly, Lung Ruoxue sat down on a stone bench by the side of the path and silently lit a row of candles for Miao Jie. What a pitiful fellow. Why didn't he run further away if he wanted to steal a fish? Chapter 27:14. Just looking, not saying. Word 2. Madam. It was a misunderstanding. It's really a misunderstanding. Madam, don't hit me. You hit me again. I'm hitting you. I'll beat you to death, you shameless things. Lung Ruoxue sat as she listened to the lively debate. Not long after, Miao Jie was pulled out from behind the rockery by the ear by the woman. The moment Miao Jie saw Lung Ruoxue, he immediately asked for help. "Miss Lung, please help me. Help me explain." "How can I help you explain when you're caught red-handed?" Lung Ruoxue was speechless. "I'm innocent. I really didn't do anything. Why do you have to accuse me like this?" Miao Jie said, feeling wronged. He had been resting well behind the rockery. How could he have known that the crazy woman would suddenly appear and tell him a lot of nonsense? And just when he was about to leave, his fierce wife appeared again. Now he would not be able to wash himself clean even if he jumped into the endless sea. "Wrongly accused you? You've said this every time. Do you think I've wronged you?" Woman Flame roared. "Well, I didn't do it anyway," Miao Jie said as he nodded his head seriously. Lung Ruoxue couldn't bear to listen to Miao Jie anymore. She truly felt that in the current situation, it did not matter whether Miao Jie was wronged every time or not. His words were destined that his explanation would be useless. Unwilling to be caught up in the couple's special interest, Lung Ruoxue prepared to return to her room to rest. Of course, before she left, she did not forget to remind Miao Jie to be more efficient. Watching Lung Ruoxue's back view, Miao Jie was really depressed. It seemed like his image in Lung Ruoxue's heart could not be changed. "Madam." After Lung Ruoxue left, Miao Jie immediately looked at the woman with a fawning smile. who knew that the woman would only snort coldly and walk away without a word. Miao Jie saw this and could only follow behind. Leng Ruoxue, who had returned to the guest courtyard, was not interested in how the couple had resolved the matter. She entered her room and did not come out again. When Miao Jie sent someone to inform her that all the higher-ups were present, the meeting was set for the next morning in the council hall. When it was time for the meeting, Leng Ruoxue didn't need anyone to lead the way, and found the meeting hall with great familiarity. At this moment, the meeting hall was already filled with a dense crowd. Leng Ruoxue could not help but sigh. There were indeed many higher-ups in the headquarters of missions. In reality, other than Miao Jie, the vice presidents and the elders, the presidents and consecrators of the various branches had also attended the meeting. Otherwise, Miao Jie would not have made Leng Ruoxue wait for so many days in vain. According to Miao Jie's idea, if there was no consensus, they would vote. The minority was subordinate to the majority. This way, he could get rid of Leng Ruoxue. It was a pity that even though his thoughts were perfect, he had clearly forgotten that Leng Ruoxue had said that if they didn't agree, she would use force. Not only that, but there was another matter that made him quite depressed. That was, the person he had sent to the Divine Master's estate to report this matter to the Divine Master had yet to return. He wondered what the Divine Master's intentions were. However, he couldn't wait any longer. If he continued to delay the meeting, Leng Ruoxue might fly into a rage at any moment. After all, it had already been a few days since he said that they would have a meeting. However, most of the higher-ups who attended the meeting were obviously not prepared to see Leng Ruoxue in the headquarters, especially when they were in a meeting. They could not help but doubt the president's intentions. Thanks, however, the branch guild leaders who had been subdued by Leng Ruoxue were exceptionally happy to see her. Of course, compared to the elders present who did not know the truth, they could not show their excitement. As for Leng Ruoxue, the moment she entered the meeting hall, she very consciously found an inconspicuous corner to sit down with Song in her arms. But even though she thought that she was very low-key, she still attracted everyone's attention. Everyone looked at her in a daze, their mouths half open, not saying a word. After a long time, Miao Jie noticed that Leng Ruoxue was too eye-catching. He had no choice but to cough a few times to get everyone's attention back. Everyone came back to their senses, and felt embarrassed. They couldn't be blamed for being too surprised. It was simply because Leng Ruoxue's reputation was like thunder to the ears, too resounding. Furthermore, only the elders who had always been in the headquarters knew that Leng Ruoxue was staying in the guest courtyard of the headquarters. The majority of the people did not know about it. Hence, when Leng Ruoxue appeared in their meeting hall, everyone was surprised and felt a little uneasy. There were rumors that wherever Leng Ruoxue appeared, there would be endless trouble. Anyone who was targeted by her would be in for a bad time. So now, could it be considered that they had been targeted by this vicious wolf? The moment this thought surfaced in some of the elders' minds, they looked at Leng Ruoxue as if they had seen a man-eating demon. Their eyes were filled with horror. Leng Ruoxue expressed her innocence in this regard. She had always thought of herself as a pacifist and a peace-loving person. Why were the people here looking at her as if she was a terrorist with a virus? She felt very wronged, okay? He glanced at Miao Jie with hidden bitterness, causing Miao Jie's little heart to tremble in fear. He calmed himself down and suddenly shouted, "A meeting! Everyone, quiet down!" When the people present heard this, they collectively broke out in a cold sweat. It was already very quiet, okay? Everyone was looking at Leng Ruoxue in shock. He didn't have the time to make irresponsible remarks. However, it was undeniable that Miao Jie's shout had brought back the 3 souls that had been scared away by Leng Ruoxue. After calming himself down, a young vice president of the headquarters of missions echoed, "Let's start the meeting." A meeting? Right. A meeting. The crowd laughed foolishly in agreement. When Leng Ruoxue saw this, she was very suspicious that the mission would always be led by these people. How far could they go? However, she had promised Miao Jie that she would not say a word. So, unless it was necessary, she would only look and not speak today. Miao Jie did not know where to start. Thus, he fell silent again after he started. When the higher-ups saw that the head guild master had stopped speaking, No one dared to interrupt. For a moment, everyone's eyes widened. After some time, Miao Jie finally felt that the atmosphere was a little off. He suddenly remembered that they were in a meeting. When he raised his head, he saw the warning in Lung Ruoxia's beautiful eyes. He forced himself to focus and coughed a few more times to clear his throat. Today, I have something important to discuss with everyone. I hope that everyone can take their own opinions and speak your mind. Guild leader, what's the matter? An elder could not help but ask. Miss Lung wants to post a mission in our mission guild. After taking a deep breath, Miao Jie said it all in one breath. Chapter 27:15. Just looking, not saying. Word 3. Then release it? Is it worth calling all of us back for such a small matter? Guild leader, I still have important matters to attend to. One of the elders said in dissatisfaction. My matter is more important than yours. All of you must give your opinions. Shut up. Miao Jie shouted angrily when he heard that. All right. Who asked you to be the president? Of course we have to listen to you. Now can Mr. President tell us what the mission is? The dissatisfied elder said in a strange tone. Lung Ruoxia saw this and knew that some of the elders were not convinced by Miao Jie. She could not help but feel glad that she had summoned all the higher-ups back. Otherwise it would be troublesome. When Miao Jie heard the elder's words, although he was also very angry, he still held it in and said to everyone present, Young Lady Lung wants to put a bounty on God Lord Fog Ripple. Zhao Feng said. As soon as he said that, the entire meeting hall fell silent. Even the sound of breathing could not be heard. The crowd was obviously petrified by his words. Now tell us your opinions. Are we going to accept this mission or not? Seeing that everyone was shocked, Miao Jie finally felt better. Otherwise, it would be unfair if he was the only one who was shocked. President, this mission. The elder who had a bad opinion of Miao Jie wanted to reject the mission immediately. However, he suddenly remembered that Lung Ruoxia was here as well, so he swallowed the words can't accept back into his stomach. Then he looked as if he was constipated, and his face turned red. Elder Qi, can I accept this mission? Seeing this, Miao Jie knew what was going on, but he still asked this on purpose. No, you can't take it. Under everyone's gaze, Elder Qi, who had been called out by Miao Jie, braced himself and said, Sob. What a bully. Why did he only ask him and not the others? Elder Qi secretly complained to himself. At this moment, he had long forgotten that he was the one who provoked Miao Jie first. When Miao Jie heard this, he only smiled faintly and said, But Miss Lung insisted that we accept this mission. I can't make the decision myself, so I called back your guild's higher-ups to discuss this matter. Do you still think I'm making a mountain out of a molehill now? I never thought that way. Elder Qi said in a low voice. However, Miao Jie obviously did not care about what he said. He only emphasized that he wanted them to come to a conclusion after a serious discussion, so that they could give Lung Ruoxia an explanation. Everyone present, other than the branch presidents who had been subdued by Lung Ruoxia, had long faces. They truly felt that their president was making things difficult for them. In reality, if Lung Ruoxia wasn't here, they might be more at ease when they discussed this matter. However, when they thought of how Lung Ruoxia was sitting by the side and watching them discuss, they didn't dare to speak carelessly. It would be a wonder if he wasn't hated by that demon. As a mission association and an organization that was known for gathering information, they understood Lung Ruoxia more than anyone else. In addition, the mission association was under the jurisdiction of the Divine Master's estate. They had the advantage of time, location, and people. Hence, almost every elder in the mission association knew that Lung Ruoxia was not someone to be trifled with. As such, no one was willing to stand out and be the villain. However, if they didn't want to be evil, they had to pretend to be deaf and mute. For a time, many elders decided to be completely mute to avoid getting into trouble. Seeing that the elders didn't say anything, the branch president and the priests felt that there was no room for them to speak, so they pretended to be mute with peace of mind. You guys should say something. Seeing that everyone was silent for a long time, Miao Jie shouted angrily. In his heart, he was cursing the people in front of him. Trash. A bunch of trash. They wouldn't be able to see them at the critical moment. Guild leader, it's up to you to decide. Well, I'll follow your lead. Seeing Miao Jie's anger, one of the branch presidents, who had received Lung Ruoxia's eye signal, immediately said in a fawning manner. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone agreed with him. Miao Jie was so angry that he almost passed out. Miao Jie's old face was red as he pointed at the elders in front of him with a trembling finger. He stammered for a long time and did not say a word. In the end, perhaps it was because of anger, his eyes suddenly rolled back and he fainted. When everyone saw this, they were all frightened and rushed forward in a hurry, trying to wake Miao Jie up with all kinds of means. Damn it! Why did he faint at such a time? The elders were panicking, while Lung Ruoxia was completely speechless. Did he think that she didn't know that Miao Jie was pretending to faint? Standing up, Lung Ruoxia shouted. Get out of my way! I'm the best at treating unconscious patients. Upon hearing this, the elders who had surrounded Miao Jie immediately dispersed to both sides like a tide, giving way to Lung Ruoxia. Lung Ruoxia took elegant steps and slowly walked to Miao Jie. Then, she took out a handful of silver needles that were twice as thick as chopsticks and shone with a beautiful luster. What thick silver needles! Someone exclaimed in surprise. Thanks. When the elders around Miao Jie saw the silver needle, they all subconsciously swallowed their saliva and took a big step back. At the same time, they thought to themselves, if this needle were to be inserted, would the president still be able to stand it? Please don't take his old life. Just as he was thinking about this, the elders saw Lung Ruoxia waving the silver needle in front of Miao Jie's eyes. Then, she gestured on his body, as if she was looking for a place to lower her hand. The silver needles cast a shadow on Miao Jie's body. Miao Jie, who was pretending to be unconscious, was so scared that his heart trembled. Even though his eyes were closed, he could clearly feel the waves of cold air coming from the surroundings, and the elders' cries of surprise. From this, it could be seen that the silver needles in Lung Ruoxia's hands were definitely not good things. Where should I start? Hearing Lung Ruoxia's mumbling, Miao Jie was so scared that he could no longer pretend. He opened his eyes and sat up straight. I am already fine. Looking at the thick silver needle in front of him, Miao Jie, who had just opened his eyes and did not dare to pretend to be unconscious, was so scared that he broke out in a cold sweat. What a thick needle! That was close. Silently wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead, Miao Jie's heart was still fluttering with fear. If the needle were to be inserted, there would definitely be a hole in his body. This was not a joke. Miao Jie carefully put on a smile and looked at Lung Ruoxia with a fawning expression. He was as obedient as a little beast. Lung Ruoxia, on the other hand, was worried and asked, You're really done? All right, I'm done. Miao Jie swallowed his saliva and answered Lung Ruoxia's question cautiously. Are you sure? Lung Ruoxia asked again. Yes, yes. Miao Jie nodded his head furiously, afraid that Lung Ruoxia would stab him if he answered too slowly. If that's the case, you guys can come up with a conclusion within half an hour. Lung Ruoxia said with a smile. She no longer wanted to continue playing hide and seek with them. In any case, now that everyone was in a neat formation, it was a good time to make a move. Half an hour? When Miao Jie and the other elders heard this, their faces turned ugly. It was obvious that half an hour was too short for them. Just half an hour. Not even a minute more. From now on, I want to know your opinions after half an hour. Lung Ruoxia's attitude was very firm. Miss Lung, half an hour is not enough. As the president, Miao Jie couldn't just stand by and watch. He had to stand out even if he didn't want to. Half an hour isn't enough? What about half a year? Lung Ruoxia asked casually. Half a year. Miao Jie was about to say that half a year was more like it. At least it would buy them some time. However, before he could finish his sentence, he was immediately interrupted by Lung Ruoxia. Lung Ruoxia's voice was extremely cold. I'll give you half an hour, but you think it's too short. I'll give you half a year, and you'll definitely find all kinds of excuses to delay it. So don't waste everyone's time and quickly decide. Faced with Lung Ruoxia's non-negotiable expression, Miao Jie and the rest were so conflicted that their intestines were about to be tied up. However, Lung Ruoxue did not care about their feelings and only reminded them indifferently. It's been 5 minutes. You have 25 minutes to discuss. Lung Ruoxue's unyielding attitude made Miao Jie and the others at a loss. However, they had been in high positions for many years, so they quickly adjusted their mentality and communicated privately. Some elders suggested asking for help from the Divine Lord's estate. After all, the Divine Lord's estate looked like it was about to start a fight. However, Miao Jie regretfully told him that he had sent someone to the Divine Master's estate a few days ago to report this matter to the Divine Master, but there had been no news from the person he had sent. When the elder heard this, he immediately wilted. At this moment, Elder Qi jumped out again and sent a voice transmission in anger. Guild leader, I don't understand why we are so afraid of Lung Ruoxue. She's only one person while we have so many people. Can't you take her down? What if she doesn't only have her own? Miao Jie reminded as he glanced at the brainless Elder Qi. This time, Elder Qi did not dare to say anything, and secretly complained, that's right. Legend had it that Lung Ruoxue was extremely cunning. She shouldn't have the guts to venture into the tiger's den alone. Could it be that there was really an ambush outside the city? But when he returned to the city, he didn't sense any stranger's aura. Of course, he didn't dare to say this out loud because he really didn't dare to take the risk. If his words caused everyone to lower their guard against Lung Ruoxue, wouldn't he become the sinner of the mission association? It had to be said that all the elders present had their own thoughts. None of them were willing to take the lead, and half an hour's time passed in a flash. Time's up, give me an answer. Lung Ruoxue smiled faintly. Miss Lung, can we have a proper talk? Miao Jie didn't dare to strain the relationship between the two parties, so he asked with a smile. Chapter 27:16. I quite despise you guys. 1. What else do we have to talk about? Originally, I only wanted to issue a mission, but you guys kept pushing it back with all sorts of excuses. Fine. Seeing that you were once my master, I've given you time and allowed you to discuss it. But now, I've waited long enough and don't want to wait any longer. So tell me the result immediately, so that we don't break up and it won't look good. Lung Ruoxue laughed coldly. After all the courtesies, she naturally didn't need to give them any face. Now, she could only see if these people knew what was good for them. It's best if he's tactful, so that she won't have to waste her time. He could only follow her rules. As for the higher-ups of the headquarters of missions, they did not dare to voice their anger after hearing Lung Ruoxue's words. They were not stupid. They could tell that Lung Ruoxue had lost her patience. Once a person lost their patience, it was easy to imagine what they would do. In reality, at this point in time, there were still quite a number of people who felt that Lung Ruoxue was speaking the truth. After all, no matter how powerful Lung Ruoxue was in the rumors or how powerful she was, her power did not only belong to her. It was the reverent god-level experts around her. Now, those reverent god-level experts had not appeared yet, so naturally, there were people who looked down on her. However, many of these people were like Elder Qi. They were the type who would make a fuss when there was nothing to do. But if there was something to do, they would hide behind, bullying the weak and fearing the strong. Therefore, even if some of them disapproved of Lung Ruoxue's unyielding attitude, they would not say anything when no one stood up for her. The atmosphere in the meeting hall fell silent for a moment. Lung Ruoxue saw that the higher-ups of the headquarters of missions were all silent, as if their mouths were sewn shut. She could only smile faintly and say, "Is this considered a silent agreement?" What silent agreement? Miao Jie couldn't help but ask. It's a silent agreement that I can issue the wanted quest for the Mist Ripple bitch. Lung Ruoxue said on purpose. This won't do. Miao Jie quickly replied. Can't. When Lung Ruoxue heard these two words, she couldn't help but squint her beautiful eyes. She then said, "You mean you welcome me to use force?" How could he possibly welcome her? Miao Jie was speechless. However, Lung Ruoxue did not care what he was thinking and continued. I just found out today that it's useless to be too polite to you. It turns out that you all like to use force against others. Since that's the case, I'll fulfill your wish today. Her words made Miao Jie's anger rise to the top. However, Miao Jie understood Lung Ruoxia's character very well. He knew that he could not go head-to-head with Lung Ruoxia at this time, or he would fall into her trap. It was a pity that not everyone present understood Miao Jie's thoughts as well. For example, Elder Qi did not want to stand out at first, but when he heard Lung Ruoxia's words, he immediately exploded and shouted, "Fuck! Who likes to be forced? We're not that cheap." "Oh really? Then tell me, what kind of girl do you like?" Lung Ruoxia smiled lightly as she turned her beautiful eyes towards Elder Qi, who had spoken impulsively. Thanks. In reality, Elder Qi regretted his words the moment he opened his mouth. However, under the watchful eyes of the crowd and the intense gaze of Lung Ruoxia's beautiful eyes, even if he was so nervous that his legs and stomach were going soft, he did not dare to reveal it. Otherwise, wouldn't he be discovered to be a coward? That would definitely not do. It would affect his dignity. With that thought in mind, Elder Qi gathered his courage and spoke to Lung Ruoxia. "I don't like anything. Lung Ruoxia, although I've heard that you're very powerful, don't forget that our mission will always belong to the Divine Master's residence. The Divine Master is also in the residence. If you dare to act rashly, the Divine Master will not let you off." Although the president had said that there was no news from the people he had sent to the Divine Lord's residence, Elder Qi believed that the Divine Lord would never give up on them. After all, they would earn a lot of money for the Divine Lord's residence in a year. They could really be considered a hen that laid golden eggs. If the guild that was on a mission was destroyed by Lung Ruoxia, the Divine Lord would not only lose money, he would also lose face. It was because of this confidence that Elder Qi was able to remain calm after he braced himself to face Lung Ruoxia. He was not afraid at all. And what Lung Ruoxia wanted was for him to not be afraid. If no one cooperated with her to continue acting, how boring would it be for her? Therefore, when Lung Ruoxia heard Elder Qi's words, she smiled happily and replied with a gentle expression, Not bad. You've learned to use the Ripple Witch to threaten me. However, have you forgotten that she and I have a grudge? Even if she lets me go, I don't think you'll let her go. What's more, that cheap woman is injured now. What can she do to me?" As soon as he finished speaking, the crowd, who had thought that Elder Qi was courageous and even wanted to idolize him, immediately turned pale with fright. The God Lord was injured? Was this for real? Was he lying to them? Everyone looked at Elder Qi with suspicion. Elder Qi felt uncomfortable under the countless burning gazes, but he had no choice but to brace himself and say, Who knows if you're telling the truth? You can only fool children with your words, but you want to lie to us? I don't have any. I can't do anything if you don't believe me. But don't blame me for not reminding you. If your master god is safe and sound, do you think she will let me enter the city? Lung Ruoxia asked with a smile. That's because our divine master is magnanimous and doesn't care about you, Elder Qi said stubbornly. However, he was already beginning to doubt Lung Ruoxia's words. However, he did not dare to show it on his face, and could only let his thoughts run wild in his heart. However, his little thoughts did not escape Qingju's eyes. Qingju did not need Lung Ruoxia's instructions to report Elder Qi's thoughts to Lung Ruoxia. Later on, Qingju got addicted to it, and peeked at other people's thoughts. With a single glance, Qingju could not help but smile. Hearing the laughter in her heart, Lung Ruoxia was a little confused. Seeing this, Qingju could only honestly tell everyone what they were thinking. After Lung Ruoxia heard this, she could not help but sigh. The higher-ups of the Mission Guild were really a pile of loose sand. These people more or less wanted to see the others embarrass themselves. So after Elder Qi stepped up, the others did not even say a word of help, allowing Elder Qi to fight alone. They were really a bunch of disloyal people. Lung Ruoxia really did not know what help these people could give her after she took them in. She hated people who didn't have team spirit the most, so to be honest, she didn't like any of them. Lung Ruoxia sighed speechlessly. She was not willing to leave them to rhyme, but she found it hard to swallow if they became her own people. Chicken ribs. They were really a bunch of chicken ribs. Actually, I don't really like you guys. After Lung Ruoxia sighed, she spoke the truth. Chapter 27:17. I quite despise you guys too. Seeing Lung Ruoxue suddenly say this out of the blue, everyone felt that it was a little strange. However, they believed that when Lung Ruoxue said that she despised them, it was absolutely true, because from her eyes, it was already clearly expressed. Instantly, everyone's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Too much. This was really too much. They hadn't even said anything yet. Lung Ruoxue was the one who despised them first? What the hell is this? Was there any justice left in this world? Since you don't like us, you can leave. Why are you still here? Lung Ruoxue's words had greatly agitated Elder Qi. Therefore, he had jumped out without a care and had lost his rationality. When Lung Ruoxue heard this, she could only look at Elder Qi helplessly and honestly replied, I want to leave, but as long as you accept my mission, I'll leave immediately. Miss Lung, I don't understand. Why do you have to come here to post a mission? Didn't you already put a bounty on the Divine Master in the Divine World? Miao Jie, who had been silent for a long time, finally couldn't help but ask. Why? Didn't your wife tell you? Lung Ruoxue asked instead of answering. Tell me what? Miao Jie asked in a daze. What did this have to do with his wife? I've already spoken to your wife. Go back and ask her. Lung Ruoxue teased. Miao Jie's face turned red when he heard that. Ask madam? How to ask? The madam was still ignoring him. He didn't beat him up either, so this made him quite uneasy. Sob. Don't tell me that madam doesn't want me anymore? Ugh. That's a little off topic. Miao Jie quickly pulled himself back from his thoughts and looked at Lung Ruoxue shamelessly, hoping that she could answer his question. However, Lung Ruoxue didn't want to repeat herself, so she only said indifferently, Isn't the Quest Guild a place to release quests? If I don't come here to post my mission, who else can I find? Miao Jie was speechless. Lung Ruoxue's question was very profound, but the mission she was about to issue was even more confusing. All the higher-ups of the Mission Guild, now fully display your duties and obediently accept the mission for me. Well, I'll be happy. Otherwise, I can only let you all down. Lung Ruoxue smiled as she reminded him. What are you doing? After hearing this, a branch president couldn't help but ask. Use force. Lung Ruoxue said matter-of-factly. Guild leader, say something. We can't let Lung Ruoxue be like this. Hearing that they were going to use force, the branch president who had just spoken quickly turned his gaze to Miao Jie and said loudly, Yup. President, please say something. With someone taking the lead, the branch presidents all spoke up. What do you want me to say? What's the use of my words alone? You let me decide everything. What do I need you people for? Is it just a decoration? Miao Jie was furious and spoke without thinking. Miao Jie was furious. The people from the Mission Guild didn't dare to respond. However, they couldn't help but think to themselves, You're the president. If you don't make the decision, are you going to let them do it? If your words were useless, then wouldn't their words be as useless as farts? For a moment, everyone was resentful. At a time like this, the president should have taken over the role alone. However, not only did Miao Jie not do that, but he even scolded them for being useless. This was definitely going to be an internal conflict. This was also the so-called tyrannical in the nest. Some people couldn't help but despise Miao Jie. Thanks, even Lung Ruoxue was starting to look down on him. He heard Lung Ruoxue sneer. President Miao, why don't you let me be the president? I'll make the decision for you. I think it's fine. Someone in the crowd shouted at the top of his lungs. Suddenly, Miao Jie's face turned green with anger. Fuck. As expected, there were traitors. Unfortunately, the voice had appeared too suddenly, and he didn't see who had said it. Look, I'm definitely the guild leader. Lung Ruoxue followed the cue and said impolitely. Miao Jie's face turned green and then black. Miss Lung, please don't make such a joke. Miao Jie said righteously. President Miao, do you think I'm joking? Lung Ruoxue scoffed. Guild leader, I'll say the same thing again. You'd better give me an answer immediately. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to use force. At that time, your guild leader position will really belong to me. After that, Lung Ruoxue warned. Lung Ruoxue, this is Yu City. Do you really think you can do whatever you want to us here? Miao Jie was furious. He directly called Lung Ruoxue by her name and threatened her. You can try. Lung Ruoxue smiled sweetly. Try? Did he dare to? No. He did not dare to try. However, it didn't matter if he didn't dare to try. Song was already getting impatient. He told Lung Ruoxue, Girl, don't talk nonsense with them. Now that we're all here, let's quickly take action. When they heard the little white cat in Lung Ruoxue's arms speak, everyone was shocked. There were really people who weren't afraid of making a big deal out of it. Right. Hurry up and exterminate the rhyme bitch's dog. The little red flower in Azure's arms also swayed its beautiful petals as it cheered. The moment this little flower opened its mouth, everyone's shock turned into petrification. This flower can talk. They had thought that the flower on the little white cat's chest was just a decoration. Who knew that it was actually alive? Wait a minute. If the flower could speak, didn't that mean that it had already developed intelligence? Oh my God. One had to know that flowers and plants that had gained sentience were all heavenly treasures and extremely precious. More importantly, this kind of plant was extremely rare, but now there was one in front of them. How could they not be excited? In that instant, everyone who had regained their senses stared at Xiaohua with burning eyes. The attraction of the blood lotus flower had even made them forget that Lung Ruoxue, their mortal malady, was right beside them. Lung Ruoxue felt helpless about their unprofessional behavior. She had not expected that the blood lotus flower would dare to open its mouth in front of so many people. What a little fellow who liked to show off. Wasn't it afraid that someone would try to take advantage of it? In fact, since the blood lotus flower dared to speak, there was really nothing to be afraid of. Who asked it to cling on to Tsong, this thick leg? But the others were not clear about this. The appearance of the snow lotus flower made some of the elders' thoughts alive again. Many of them secretly thought that if they could get this treasure and give it to the Divine Master, the Divine Master might be happy and make them the president of the mission headquarters. It had to be said that wealth would always make some greedy people lose their rationality. In addition, the elders present who had designs on the blood lotus flower did not think that the snow-white cat without a single stray hair was very powerful. Therefore, some people were determined to get the blood lotus flower. Lung Ruoxue, we will not accept your mission. Since you have disrespected the Divine Master, we naturally cannot let you leave so easily. However, if you are willing to keep this flower, we will treat it as if nothing had happened. How about it? All of a sudden, an elder spoke a bunch of grand words and even expressed his stance on behalf of everyone present, but his purpose was self-evident. Chapter 27:18. I quite despise you guys 3. Lung Ruoxue laughed when she heard that. Elder Wu Ming, do you represent yourself or the headquarters? Lung Ruoxue asked curiously. I really didn't expect this. She had said so much nonsense before, but no one had taken the initiative to make a statement. However, a little flower had made some people jump out on their own initiative. If she had known this earlier, why would she have wasted her breath on them? It would have been better to send the blood lotus flower directly. Of course I represent the mission headquarters, the elder said with an extremely firm will. President Miao Jie, you don't have any objections either? Lung Ruoxue turned to ask Miao Jie. Miao Jie hesitated for a moment, but he still answered truthfully. We really can't accept your mission. He did not say a word about who the flower belonged to. In fact, he was also somewhat interested in that heavenly treasure, but as the president of a guild, he couldn't just openly claim the flower as his own in front of everyone. That would be too damaging to his prestige as the president. What about you guys? Lung Ruoxue then asked the other elders. Most of the elders were silent, but a few of them nodded. Very good. A flower has allowed you to make a quick decision. Since that's the case, I can end my courtesies before violence. Song, let's do it. Lung Ruoxue nodded her head in satisfaction before turning to Tsong. Humph. You must be tired of living to have designs on my little blood. Yes. Big thigh, annihilate them all. The blood lotus flower jeered. Hearing the word thigh, Lung Ruoxue was a little embarrassed. These 2 words had a good image, but she didn't know what Song would think. However, Azure clearly didn't care and was quite eager to try. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue, a human, a beast, and a flower, looked like they were really about to start a fight, Miao Jie suddenly felt a little uneasy. He carefully confirmed, Lung Ruoxue, do you really want to fight? Do you think I'm joking? Come on. I've played with you long enough. Now let's have a showdown. The losing side will be at the mercy of the winner. Lung Ruoxue said calmly. Lung Ruoxue, you're only one person. You're overestimating yourself if you think you can fight against so many of us. Seeing Lung Ruoxue's shameless boasting, Elder Qi couldn't help but roar in anger. You guys try and you'll know if I'm overestimating myself. Lung Ruoxue laughed coldly as she spoke in a nonchalant manner. As soon as she finished speaking, a white lightning bolt shot out from Lung Ruoxue's arms. Whoosh! Whoosh! After a few flashes, only white rays of light were left in the air, but wherever the lightning went, a group of elders fell. Those elders didn't even have the time to scream for help before they directly fainted. At this moment, the elders who were still safe and sound finally felt fear. It was really too terrifying. How did the little white cat do it? The elders who were still conscious felt that it was unbelievable, but in the next second, this kind of treatment was on them. In just a few minutes, the elders who had been awake all fell to the ground with pale faces. This scene made Miao Jie's face turn pale with horror. How did this happen? Fear, panic, and fear surrounded Miao Jie. He had never felt that death was so close to him. Was this Lung Ruoxue's true strength? No, this was only the cat's. It was the kitten that Lung Ruoxue carried in his arms all day long, which made him feel that other than acting cute, it was useless. And Lung Ruoxue had yet to reveal her true abilities. However, that cat was enough to make Miao Jie tremble in fear. All of a sudden, he deeply felt that he and the others had made the wrong decision. Lung Ruoxue was just like the legends said one should never provoke her. But now that he had done so, what was he supposed to do? Just as Miao Jie's expression was changing like a color palette, Song had already turned around and returned to Lung Ruoxue's arms. Other than the branch guild leaders that they had already recruited, only Miao Jie was safe and sound. And Song had left Miao Jie behind on purpose. Pa! Miao Jie heard the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground. Miao Jie looked up and his expression changed drastically. You! Miao Jie pointed at the object on the ground with a trembling finger. It was the subordinate he had sent to the Divine Master's estate. He was so shocked that he could not speak. Guild Master Sob. I didn't even have the chance to go to the Divine Master's estate before I was captured by them. When the subordinate saw Miao Jie, he cried as if he had seen a family member. Thanks you. Miao Jie looked at Lung Ruoxue with a complicated expression. He took a few deep breaths before continuing. The current result is the real purpose of you coming to the headquarters, right? The arrest warrant for God Lord Cloud Ripple was just an excuse. At this point, what else did Miao Jie not understand? Not bad. I came to the Imperial City to take over the headquarters mission. Lung Ruoxue didn't hide anything and told him her true motive. If that's the case, why didn't you make a move earlier, and instead let me cause so much trouble like a jumping clown? Miao Jie was filled with grief and indignation, and there seemed to be tears in his eyes. He deeply felt that he had been completely played by Lung Ruoxue for the past few days. This fact made him quite worried. Lung Ruoxue must have been laughing at him in secret. Do you think I didn't want to make a move earlier? But you don't have enough people. In addition, I like to subdue my subordinates through peaceful means before resorting to force. If you are willing to submit to me, that would naturally be the best. So please believe me, I've been giving you time. I won't force you until the end. Unfortunately, you've disappointed me greatly because you're too insensible. Lung Ruoxue explained with a helpless expression. In reality, she was very polite to the headquarters. Other than the fact that the headquarters was established by her master, it was also because the higher UPS here were basically all divine emperors. Since they were experts, they naturally couldn't be treated as they pleased. Therefore Lung Ruoxue gave them enough respect, especially to Miao Jie. She had done her best. After all, she didn't want her future subordinates to have any dissatisfaction with her. After she had done everything she could, These people still insisted on doing things their own way, so she couldn't be blamed. After hearing Lung Ruoxia's explanation, Miao Jie's feelings became even more complicated. It turned out that it was their arrogance that had harmed them. Why did you leave me alone? Why didn't you let me end up like them? Miao Jie asked again after a long time. You're the guild leader of the Missions Guild. Of course you have to be different. Now make your decision. Lung Ruoxia said with a smile. I can't betray the Divine Master. Miao Jie said after some hesitation. Even though he knew that his answer might anger Lung Ruoxia, he really couldn't. Because of your father and the others? Lung Ruoxia said. From Green Vessel's mind-reading ability, she knew more about Miao Jie. This was also one of the reasons why she had not made a move. Miao Jie was shocked when he heard that. How did Lung Ruoxia know? He didn't even tell his wife about this. Moreover, he had the idea of getting that flower for a moment, and it was also to save his father. I know why you've been so loyal to that bitch Ripple Mist since you were young. Lung Ruoxia continued to disclose more exciting news. This time, Miao Jie was really provoked. One should know that these things had been buried in his heart for many years. Now no one in the headquarters knew about his past. However, at this moment, Lung Ruoxia had found out about all these old things. He was a little afraid. Uneasily looking at the branch president behind Lung Ruoxia, Miao Jie's face was ashen as he asked. You're saying all this just to get me to surrender? I just wanted to tell you that I can save your father, your master, and the others. Lung Ruoxia said nonchalantly. However, Miao Jie obviously didn't believe her words. After the secret in his heart was exposed, he slowly calmed down and laughed. Do you think it's that easy to save them? What if I can save them? Lung Ruoxia asked with a faint smile. As long as you can save them, I'll recognize you as my master. Miao Jie said without hesitation. He did not believe that Lung Ruoxia could save her. If it was that easy to save her, he would not have been restrained by Fog Ripple all these years. He even had to act like he respected Fog Ripple on the surface, but in reality, he hated Fog Ripple to death. Since that's the case, you can recognize me as your master now, Lung Ruoxia said with a smile. Miao Jie was dumbfounded. How could this be? If he recognized her as his master, where was she? Was he rescued? Very quickly, Lung Ruoxia answered his question. Did you think I was sleeping in my room the past few days? To tell you the truth, I went to save someone. Lung Ruoxia smiled smugly, as if she was willing to see Miao Jie's dumbfounded expression. Miao Jie was stunned for a moment, but he quickly reacted and asked anxiously, Where's that person? Jie. At this moment, an old man's voice sounded from outside the meeting hall. Miao Jie looked in the direction of the voice and saw a familiar figure in his memory. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he pounced on the legs of the person who spoke like a child. He hugged the person's leg and started crying. Father! Miao Jie howled loudly. The man he was hugging looked extremely old. His body was hunched over and riddled with scars. His clothes were slightly tattered and even emitted a damp and moldy smell. His current appearance made Lung Ruoxia, who was watching from the side, feel speechless. This person was definitely doing this on purpose. He had been rescued for a few days, but he had not changed his clothes or treated his injuries. At the very least, he had to take a bath and wash his face, right? However, in order to make his son feel the pain he had suffered for so many years, this man had actually appeared in such a manner. Miao Jie was probably even more shocked now. Chapter 27:19. I don't need you to give in one. However, Lung Ruoxia more or less understood what the other party was thinking. She knew that Miao Jie's father was just afraid that Miao Jie had been brainwashed by the fog over the years, and had lived a comfortable life for so long that he would forget about his hatred. However, in reality, although Miao Jie had always shown his loyalty to the fog, he was also constantly thinking about saving his father, master, and the others. However, as time went by, his hard work had not yielded any results. Slowly, he became disheartened. After Lung Ruoxia heard about this from Qingju, she did not immediately look for Miao Jie. Instead, she went to rescue the people he cared about. Such an unexpected result was a huge blow to Miao Jie, but it was also easier to win his heart. Originally, Lung Ruoxue did not want to go through so much trouble to treat Miao Jie. After all, he was just a relatively important chess piece in her own spy network back then. However, after knowing Miao Jie's background, she immediately changed her mind. Miao Jie's father, Miao Yuan, was the first president appointed by her master when he created the Mission Guild. However, after her master fell, Miao Yuan was not willing to join the Fog, so he was imprisoned by the Fog. However, the treatment he received was much better than Dong Fengyu and the others. After all, Miao Yuan and the others were not considered as her master's true subordinates. Moreover, the Fog had to use him to restrain Miao Jie and make him work like a slave for her, so she did not abuse him too much. However, Miao Yuan did not think so. That fellow was extremely loyal to his master, and did not think highly of Wu Chen at all. Naturally, he would not be grateful that Wu Chen had shown mercy to him. Moreover, Wu Chen had imprisoned those who did not obey her leadership. As such, Miao Yuan would not appreciate her kindness. Therefore, even though Miao Yuan had been hiding for the past few days, he did not manage to deal with his image properly. Miao Yuan just wanted Miao Jie to take a good look at him, and give him a warning. Miao Jie didn't let him down. After seeing his father's miserable state, he said angrily, "Father, Wu Chen promised me that she would treat you well. She actually lied to me? To think that I've been working so hard for her all these years." Miao Jie was so angry that he stopped calling her divine master, and directly called her by her name. When she heard that she would be treated the same way as Wu Cheng, Lung Ruoxue felt uncomfortable in her heart. She really didn't want to be associated with Wu Cheng. At this time, Miao Yuan also said angrily, "You brat, only you will believe that ingrate's words. Her words are all lies to 3-year-old children." "Father, I was wrong." Miao Jie quickly lowered his head and admitted his mistake with red eyes. He looked exactly like a 3-year-old child right now. It's good that you know you're in the wrong. In the future you have to listen to young master's words, understand? Miao Yuan ordered with a stern face. Young master. Miao Jie was bewildered. He had no idea who the young master his father was talking about was. Idiot. In the future, you will have to listen to young master Lung Ruoxue. Miao Yuan called out his name directly. At this point, Miao Jie had no choice but to understand. However, he was still a little confused. How did Lung Ruoxue suddenly become a young master? Young master, I will be obedient in the future. He said obediently. Lung Ruoxue chuckled when she saw Miao Jie's serious and childish words. She did not expect Miao Jie to have such a silly and cute side. However, she still said in a serious tone, "Be good." Miao Jie was embarrassed, and his face turned red. His face was burning as if it was on fire. Thanks suddenly, Miao Jie heard a faint snickering sound, and came to a realization. There were still outsiders here. Why did he acknowledge Lung Ruoxue as his master? The outsiders he was referring to were naturally the branch presidents who were watching the commotion with wide eyes. Understanding Miao Jie's thoughts, Lung Ruoxue pointed at the branch presidents and said, "They've been my people for a long time." Miao Jie was shocked. These branch presidents had been working for Lung Ruoxue since a long time ago? Could it be that she had planned all of this long ago, and was now just waiting to cast the net to catch them? Miao Jie could not help but sigh. No wonder Lung Ruoxue looked so confident. Look at what she had done without them noticing. However, the more he understood, the more he felt that he had been like a clown. With that thought, he looked at Lung Ruoxue with hidden bitterness and pointed at the elders who had fainted on the ground. "What about them? Naturally, it's a forced master," Lung Ruoxue said without a trace of emotion. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's words, Miao Jie felt that she was treating him very well. However, in order to show his loyalty, Miao Jie took the initiative to sign the contract. After all, he was once a member of Fog City. Even if Lung Ruoxue didn't mind, he couldn't give others the chance to gossip about him. As for Lung Ruoxue, she was naturally very satisfied with Miao Jie's way of doing things. After that, the elders who were awakened one by one were told collectively that they would either recognize their master or die. Choose one. Under Lung Ruoxue's violent suppression, most of the elders tactfully chose to recognize her as their master. In reality, they had no choice. "I can't just die, right? They did not have such a high level of awareness. He wasn't that unyielding either. However, there were always one or two elders who felt that they were different, such as Elder Qi. Even at a time like this, he still did not forget to use the Divine Master to threaten Leng Ruoxue. He also expressed his deep disdain towards the elder's submission. Leng Ruoxue, it's not like you defeated us. I'm not convinced. I won't recognize you as my master, and the Divine Master won't let you go. The Divine Master will take revenge for us. Elder Qi shouted fearlessly. Even Miao Jie, who heard this, could not help but break out in a cold sweat for him. Of course, he didn't care about Elder Qi's life or death. He was just worried about Elder Qi's audacity. If he angered his new master, he really didn't know what this seemingly gentle but actually bad-tempered master would do. As expected, the moment Elder Qi finished speaking, Leng Ruoxue's smile became even more charming. She then asked, from Elder Qi's words, "You mean you want to fight me one-on-one?" "That's right. I will only submit to you if you defeat me." Elder Qi cowered, but he still gathered his courage and replied, "Very good. I like it when you're this tough, come on. I'll give you a chance." Leng Ruoxue was neither angry nor annoyed, and her voice was unusually calm. "I'll let you make the first move, how about it?" Leng Ruoxue added. Instantly, Elder Qi's old face turned red because of Leng Ruoxue's words. Fuck. He was a man. If a woman gave way to him, where would he put his face? Leng Ruoxue, stop looking down on me. I don't need you to give in. Elder Qi was so angry that he shouted at the top of his lungs. All right then. Leng Ruoxue looked at Elder Qi helplessly, then looked at the others with an innocent expression. The expression on her beautiful face seemed to be saying, look, he was the one who didn't allow me to. Chapter 27:20. I don't need you to give in too. Seeing this, everyone's lips twitched and cold sweat broke out. However, what happened next petrified them all. This was because after Elder Qi, who was initially eager to fight, made his move, Leng Ruoxue did not receive his attack, nor did she prepare to attack. Instead, she stood calmly on the spot without moving. It was only when the wind blade condensed by Elder Qi's divine power was right in front of her that her body swayed slightly. If it were not for everyone's excellent eyesight, they would not have noticed that slight movement. But what about Elder Qi? The fact that Leng Ruoxue had managed to nullify his attack had thoroughly infuriated him. Hence, he did not even think twice before he attacked again. This time, Leng Ruoxue finally made a big move. She immediately turned into a stream of light and shot towards Elder Qi. When she was right in front of him, Leng Ruoxue gracefully lifted her leg and kicked Elder Qi's waist. Then, the crowd saw Elder Qi flying towards the wall of the assembly hall like a kite with a broken string. With a loud bang, the originally solid wall of the meeting hall had a human-shaped hole in it, and Elder Qi was embedded in the wall. Even though Leng Ruoxue rarely did such a thing, she had seen a lot and learned quickly. Hence, the entire set of movements was so smooth that it dazzled the eyes of everyone present, and made them exclaim in admiration. The things that Leng Ruoxue had done, and the strength that she had displayed had caused them to be completely petrified and shocked. After a long time, they finally regained their senses. However, the way they looked at Leng Ruoxue had completely changed. With Elder Qi standing out, the other elders who had wanted to stir up trouble were all like newborn chicks, obedient and honest. No one wanted to be embedded in the wall like Elder Qi and become a mural. At this time, they both sympathized with Elder Qi's encounter, but they could not help but be glad that he had sacrificed himself. Otherwise, they would probably be included in the mural now. However, after Elder Qi became a mural, he did not faint. Instead, he was extremely clear-headed. After struggling a few times, Elder Qi saw that he couldn't break free, so he shouted at the top of his voice, "Put me down, quickly put me down!" Leng Ruoxue, did you hear that? Who are you talking to, huh? Leng Ruoxue squinted her beautiful eyes and said indifferently, "Woo. I was wrong, please let me down. I don't want to stay up there." When Elder Qi heard this, he immediately gave in. The current him was like someone who had been stripped of all his clothes and allowed to be seen by others, making him quite uncomfortable. Moreover, it was a little high up there. He was afraid of heights. It's so good up there. You can stand high and see far. The scenery must be very beautiful and charming. Moreover, you're looking down from above, and we all have to look up to you. Isn't this what you've been dreaming of? Lung Ruoxue reminded him with a smile. Dreams? No way. He did want to be looked up to by the crowd, but definitely not under such circumstances. Right now he really felt like a monkey in the zoo. The feeling of being surrounded and discussed by all kinds of people was really not good. Let me down. I'm begging you. Elder Qi pulled down his old face and begged. He was well aware that without Lung Ruoxue's orders, no one would have dared to save him. No, I think you look good now. I'm very satisfied. Lung Ruoxue retorted. Then she shifted her gaze to the other elders and reminded them. You can recognize me as your master now. Thanks. After that, Lung Ruoxue told them about the contract that she was going to sign. It was the one that the parasol tree mother tree had taught her. When the elders heard this, no one dared to disobey. It was because the reality was very clear. Lung Ruoxue could easily take care of them. Furthermore, there was that little kitten that could take care of them all by itself. It was watching them like a tiger watching its prey. How could they still have the thought to resist? The signing of the contract went very smoothly. After becoming one of their own, Lung Ruoxue finally gave the elders a smile, and told them that their future work location would still be an imperial city, and the nature of the work in the Guild of Missions would remain the same. When Miao Jie and the elders heard this, they looked at Lung Ruoxue in surprise. Then the elders collectively turned their gazes to Miao Jie. Miao Jie had no choice but to bear the brunt of it and asked the question in everyone's heart. Young master, we're already your people. It's not good to move around in Yu City under the eyes of Wucheng. Moreover, if Raimais finds out that we've betrayed them, I'm afraid we'll end up in a terrible state. Miao Jie's words echoed the thoughts of everyone present. As soon as he finished speaking, everyone shifted their gaze back to Lung Ruoxue in unison. The anticipation in their eyes was self-evident. They didn't want to stay in Yu City anymore. This was obvious. Raimais doesn't know that you've betrayed us. As long as you don't say it out loud, you'll still belong to the Divine Master's estate. Lung Ruoxue smiled as she consoled him. Ugh. Did the new master want them to? Now everyone understood. However, such a thing was indeed very dangerous. As long as they were exposed, what awaited them would be death. Master, what should we do with Elder Qi? There's also some of the headquarters' normal staff. These people are not easy to deal with. At this time, an elder who thought of this couldn't help but remind. Can't you guys handle the normal staff? Lung Ruoxue asked in disbelief. We don't have a problem with the ordinary staff, but it's a big problem for Elder Qi. The elder said after some thought. He's even less of a problem. As long as you don't put him down, he won't be able to come down himself. Lung Ruoxue laughed evilly. Elder Qi had said it quite firmly. Hearing this, all the elders looked at Elder Qi, who was hanging on the wall as a mural, with sympathy. Then, that elder said worriedly, "We're afraid that he'll talk nonsense. There are so many people coming and going here. It'll be terrible if something reaches the Divine Master's estate." I see. Why don't we give him some mute medicine so that he can't make a sound? Lung Ruoxue's suggestion was met with deep agreement from the elders. Listening to Lung Ruoxue and the rest talking about how to deal with him, Elder Qi was so depressed that he wished he could faint. However, at this moment, he was full of energy and couldn't faint even if he wanted to. However, the feeling of listening to everyone talking about him was really uncomfortable. Please spare me. I was wrong. I'll recognize you as my master. Elder Qi wanted to cry but had no tears. You're not sincere enough. Lung Ruoxue obviously despised him. Tears streamed down Elder Qi's face, and he wished he could kneel down in front of Lung Ruoxue. Why did the other elders not receive such treatment, but he had to be tortured like this? It was not fair. This is not fair. It was extremely unfair to him. The furious Elder Qi made up his mind and said with tears streaming down his face, "Then what do you want? Just tell me." Chapter 27-21. I don't need you to give in 3. Didn't I say that you're not sincere? Lung Ruoxua looked at Elder Qi as if she was looking at an idiot. Then, she bade goodbye to Miao Jie and the rest before turning around and leaving the meeting hall. Don't go. Don't go. Come back. Ooh, put me down. Elder Qi begged in pain, but all he could see was Lung Ruoxua's back. Seeing Lung Ruoxua leave without any hesitation, Elder Qi had no choice but to turn his resentful gaze to Miao Jie. He pleaded softly, President, help me put in a few good words and get that little ancestor to agree to let me down. Woo-woo. Miao Jie felt great listening to Elder Qi, who had always liked to find trouble, begging him. He could not deny that he was very relieved to see Elder Qi's current state. However, as a person of high status, his thoughts could not be seen in the light. Therefore, he looked at Elder Qi with a pained expression and said helplessly, Elder Qi, it's not that I want to criticize you, but you know that my master is not to be trifled with, so why did you have to throw an egg at a rock? AI. Master is currently in a fit of anger, so I don't dare to speak up for you. After he finished speaking, Miao Jie supported his father and turned around to leave. Seeing that the new master and the president had left, the elders and branch presidents were naturally unwilling to stay any longer. Moreover, they had more important things to do. For example, the people around the president. They really didn't recognize those people, so they thought of asking Miao Jie in private. After a while, Elder Qi was the only one left in the large meeting hall. Put me down. Put me down. Elder Qi's unyielding voice echoed in the spacious meeting hall, but no one responded to him. The next day, Miao Jie came over excitedly to tell Lung Ruoxua that he had told the elders about the identities of Miao Yuan and the others. The elders were all extremely surprised and wanted to hold a celebratory banquet for their father and the others. They had specially invited Lung Ruoxua to attend. When Lung Ruoxua heard this, she gave it some thought and still reminded him honestly, Miao Jie, I don't mind if you want to hold a banquet, but what I want to tell you is that Miao Yuan and the others cannot stay in the headquarters like this. Otherwise, if they are discovered by the Ripple Mist bitch, it will bring danger to all of you. Then what should we do? Miao Jie immediately panicked when he heard that. There are two choices. One is that I bring them back to Demon City, and the other is that I give them some disguise pills. You let them think about it. Lung Ruoxua gave him two options. Thank you, young master. Miao Jie said gratefully. The celebration banquet was held as scheduled. Before the banquet, Miao Jie did not mention this to them. However, once the banquet ended, he immediately told Miao Yuan and the others about Lung Ruoxua's suggestion. After Miao Yuan and the others heard this, they all decided to disguise themselves and stay in Yu City after careful consideration. After all, this was their route and their home. They could not bear to leave. As for not being able to show their true faces, they didn't care. In any case, Fog wouldn't think that those people were them, because the prison had been arranged by the young master. They believed that it wouldn't be long before Fog would receive the news of their death. However, they were worried about their identity. After all, there would always be so many people on the mission at once, which would make people suspicious. And Fog was suspicious by nature. However, Miao Jie calmly told them that they didn't need to worry about this matter. As the president of the Missions Guild, it was easy for him to arrange fake identities for them. However, they had to put on a full show. Before this matter was completely confirmed, they had to remain invisible for a period of time, and not appear in Yu City openly. Miao Yuan and the rest immediately agreed to Miao Jie's plan. Just like that, the issue of Miao Yuan and the others' identities was easily resolved. Lung Ruoxua had also completed the mission that the headquarters had taken in. She was prepared to return home with the large amount of resources that Miao Jie had handed in. Of course, she did not forget about Elder Qi before she left. She went to see Elder Qi and told the old man that she was leaving. When Elder Qi heard this, he immediately burst into tears and shouted that he wanted to recognize him as his master. However, his voice was weak. It was obvious that he had been tortured to the point of a mental breakdown in just a short period of time. This time, Lung Ruoxua didn't make things difficult for him. She really didn't want to waste any more time in Yu City. When Elder Qi heard this, he immediately acknowledged her as his master. He didn't need Lung Ruoxua to tell him about the master recognition contract, because he had heard it clearly when Lung Ruoxue had told the other elders. The moment the contract was formed, Elder Chi's heart that had been in his throat for a long time finally relaxed. However, when Lung Ruoxue rescued him from the wall, Elder Chi was still bawling his eyes out. He sighed seriously. He no longer wanted to be a mural and no longer wanted to be looked up to by others. The feeling of being looked up to was really not good. Sob. He should just be an honest elder. Furthermore, he could tell that Lung Ruoxue was different from other masters. If he wanted to cause any more trouble, Lung Ruoxue would definitely not allow him to do so. One had to admit that Elder Chi had grown up. After settling this last matter, Lung Ruoxue then carried Song and left the headquarters as if there was no one else around. On the way to the city gates, Lung Ruoxue met the 3 reverent god-level experts from the Divine Master's estate by chance. They stared at each other for a long time, but none of them said a word. They then separated. Thanks, however, Lung Ruoxue didn't ignore the few gazes that were fixed on her from behind. But she was very calm and walked to the city gate with elegant steps. When he was less than 100 meters away from the city gate, the leader of the city guards saw him at a glance. It wasn't because he had good eyesight, but because Lung Ruoxue was too eye-catching. He couldn't even pretend not to see her. He ran towards Lung Ruoxue excitedly. The head guard's face was flushed red as he asked, "Miss Lung, are we leaving the city?" This was great. He was finally going to send this demon away. Only the heavens knew how worried he had been these days. The leader of the guards was so happy that he almost danced with joy. However, it was a pity that Lung Ruoxue revealed a cheeky smile to the head guard and told him that she wasn't going out of the city, and was just going for a stroll. The guard leader's face fell when he heard that. When Lung Ruoxue saw this, she could not help but feign sadness and asked, "You can't wait for me to leave? You don't welcome me?" She looked hurt. And no. The leader of the guards denied shyly. However, he could not deceive his own heart because he really did not welcome Lung Ruoxue. This woman was too troublesome. He was another time bomb that might explode at any moment. He really didn't want to experience those days of fear anymore. Lying is not good behavior. Forget it. I won't make things difficult for you. Since I'm so unwelcomed, I'd better leave first. After saying this, Lung Ruoxue walked towards the city gates with a sad look on her face. However, she had only taken 2 steps when Lung Ruoxue turned around and said, "But he'll be back." Initially, when the guard leader heard that Lung Ruoxue was leaving, he was overjoyed. However, before he could be happy for long, he heard that she would return. His overjoyed expression immediately froze on his face, and his half-smile expression looked a little distorted. Lung Ruoxue glanced at the guard leader's stiff expression and continued with a smile. "Why, are you very disappointed?" After saying this, Lung Ruoxue finally left. However, even though Lung Ruoxue's back view could no longer be seen, the guard's body was still stiff. His heart was in a mess and he could not calm down. Lung Ruoxue couldn't care less about how conflicted the guard's thoughts were, because it didn't take long for Tsong to teleport her back to the land of demons. At this moment, the land of demons could be considered a real city. In the days that she was away, the construction of Demon City had advanced by leaps and bounds. By the time she returned, the construction of the entire base had been completed. As she looked at the grand and magnificent Demon City, Lung Ruoxue's mood was exceptionally high. However, her happiness did not last long before she was discovered by Uncle Long and the others. What awaited her was naturally the merciless judgment of the crowd. Sitting in the living room, Lung Ruoxue felt uneasy as she looked at Uncle Long, Godfather, and the rest who had unfriendly expressions. Don't look at how she was imposing in front of outsiders, but in front of these people she saw as family, she couldn't be tough at all. Therefore, from the moment she sat down in the living room, she was like an obedient baby. She lowered her head obediently and did not say a word, waiting for the crowd to flip out. At the same time, she couldn't help but sigh. Fortunately, her grandfather and brothers went into seclusion after meeting Li Zhong and the others. Otherwise, she would have a hard time explaining herself. "Speak." After drinking a mouthful of tea, the master of the Ning family said lightly, "Godfather Uncle Long, you've worked hard. Lung Ruoxue said with a fawning smile. I didn't ask you to say this. Master Ning said through gritted teeth. Then what should I say? Lung Ruoxue couldn't help but play dumb, looking at how unfriendly her godfather and the rest were. How could she dare to say that she had provoked that bitch from the ripple mist, even if she had no choice? However, she believed that even if she didn't say anything, her godfather and the others would have found out. However, she still couldn't take the initiative to tell him. Where have you been? Seeing that Lung Ruoxue wasn't being honest, Master Ning could only ask her himself. Song, where did we all go? Lung Ruoxue didn't dare to answer directly, and could only lower her head to ask Song. Song helplessly pouted and deeply despised Lung Ruoxue's cowardice. Was there a need to be so secretive? After we left the Ascender Alliance, we went to find trouble with the Ripple Mist bitch. Song Rushi said. After he finished speaking, he even gave Lung Ruoxue a look of disdain. Lung Ruoxue smiled awkwardly and added, I didn't know about this beforehand. That's right, I forced Neo to go. If you want to find trouble, come find me. Seeing that Lung Ruoxue was obviously trying to shirk her responsibility, Song was furious. He turned his spear and shouted at Master Ning and the rest. However, that was the truth. Hence, Song Ho was not really angry at Lung Ruoxue. Chapter 27-22. Shuer, did you miss me too? 1. Hearing Song's angry words, everyone fell silent. Looking for trouble with Song? Did they dare to? Song could send these reverent god-level experts flying with one kick. Moreover, they didn't really want to investigate Shuer's disappearance. They just wanted Shuer to value them. Woo. Song is too bad. By saying this, it was obvious that it didn't want them to find trouble with the bad girl Shuer. The few people present were very unwilling. But they couldn't beat Song, so they could only suffer in silence. Unwillingly, Uncle Long was the first to change his mind. Ehe. How would we dare to find trouble with you? Besides, we're not blaming Shuer. It's just that if there's something fun, you should also think of us. It doesn't feel good to let us old men wait at home like idiots without knowing anything. What Uncle Long meant was that if something like this happened in the future, they shouldn't forget about them. They also wanted to participate. But after hearing this, Song asked, I'll tell you, do you have time to go and join in the fun? We're not building Demon City anymore. I'm talking about the future. Uncle Long added, That's right, you can't leave us behind if something like this happens again in the future. We're also participating. Master Ning said after looking at Lung Ruoxue with a bitter expression. Yes, we also want to see how unlucky Wu Chun is. However, I heard your voice in the sky that day. I wonder what good things you did. Dong Fonglin asked curiously. He remembered that the voice had said two things. One was the petal of the mist ripple bitch, and the other was the blood lotus flower. They already knew what the mist ripple petal meant, but they didn't know what the blood lotus flower meant. I sold the petal of the mist ripple bitch for 2 jingshi, and then I snatched the blood lotus flower that could heal her. That's all. Azure casually said. Can you be more detailed? Uncle Long asked anxiously. They had been making wild guesses about the blood lotus flower for a long time. Seeing everyone's eyes filled with anticipation, Azure stretched out his little paw and patted the petals of the red flower on his chest, saying softly, Little blood, say hello to everyone. At this moment, the incomparably beautiful blood lotus became coy. It extended a branch and wrapped it around Azure's small claw, shaking it silently. It was unknown what it was saying to Azure. Azure didn't say a word, and the beast and flower seemed to be communicating. Uncle Long and the others held their breaths and looked at this scene in a daze. No one dared to interrupt the communication between Song and the red flower. What surprised them even more was that they had known Song for so long. And other than seeing it treat Shuer gently, they had never seen it treat anyone so gently. Although it was an exaggeration to use tender as water, the feeling that Song gave them now was very. After staring at Song and that little red flower for a while, Uncle Long and the rest felt a little embarrassed. They could only twist their stiff necks and turn to look at Lung Ruoxue, who knew that Shuer would have a helpless and matter-of-fact expression, obviously used to such things. A few extremely bored elderly men who wanted to gossip quietly approached Shuer and asked in a low voice, "Girl, what's going on with them?" Seeing that Uncle Long and the rest had also noticed the difference between Dian Song and the blood lotus flower, Lung Ruoxua explained with an evil smile. "They have a relationship that goes beyond friendship." As they listened to Shuer's obscure words, the few old men were confused. They didn't know what a relationship beyond friendship was. What was this good? "Thanks, Shuer. What do you mean?" The master of the Ning family asked shamelessly. It was a good quality to ask without shame. "About the same as me and the demon," Lung Ruoxua explained. Uncle Long and the others finally understood. As expected, there was something. They knew it. Why did Song suddenly kidnap Shuer for no reason? So it was to save his little lover. A hero saving a beauty. Everything could be explained now. It was forgivable to go through fire and water for a beauty. Uncle Long and the others thought about it randomly and found an excuse for not daring to cause trouble for Tsong. Lung Ruoxua looked at their expressions and knew what Uncle Long and the others were thinking. However, she didn't care what they were thinking. She only knew that with Tsong's matter, they would forget about her. This was what she wanted. And the truth was just as Lung Ruoxua had thought. Now that they'd discovered spring, Uncle Long and the others couldn't be bothered to find trouble with Shuer. They were even imagining when they would be able to drink Shangsong's wedding wine. They had to admit that they were so bored recently that their hair was about to grow out. However, don't think that Azure didn't know what these disrespectful old men were thinking. It was just too lazy to pay attention to them, and focused on coaxing the suddenly shy blood lotus. With great difficulty, the blood lotus flower was finally coaxed and greeted everyone in a childish voice. "Hello." After saying this, the blood lotus flower fell silent again and buried its tender petals into Azure's arms. When everyone saw a flower acting coquettishly towards a cat, the corners of their mouths twitched uncontrollably. They quickly adjusted their expressions and said enthusiastically, "Hello, little red flower. It's called Little Blood." Song coldly corrected, "Hello, Little Blood." Everyone greeted him again. However, this also allowed them to fully understand the position of this flower in Senior Tsong's heart. Little Blood didn't respond. At this time, everyone heard Song coldly say, "Put away your dirty thoughts. Little Blood and I are not what you think." After coaxing Little Blood, Azure finally had the time to explain. However, in the eyes of the crowd, its explanation was obviously a cover-up. Therefore, although everyone nodded their heads in understanding on the surface, they did not believe its words in their hearts. However, Song didn't mind. He greeted Lung Ruoxua and had Nio send them into the bracelet. Lung Ruoxua naturally did as she was told. Actually, she had long wanted to send the blood lotus flower in. However, neither the Azure Sea nor the blood lotus flower had the intention to do so, so she was too embarrassed to mention it. After sending Song away, Lung Ruoxua became the target of Uncle Long and the others. They continued to ask her what she had been doing during this period of time. Lung Ruoxua was helpless and could only report everything that she and Song had done during this period of time. But luckily, Uncle Long and the others were not angry this time. However, when Uncle Long and the others heard of Lung Ruoxua and Song's actions, they were still greatly shocked. They had never thought that this man and beast would actually run to the Imperial City and accept the mission headquarters. If this matter was known by Wu Yan, she would definitely vomit blood. Shuer, well done. After listening to Lung Ruoxua's words for a long time, Dongfang Yu, who had been silent all this while, finally opened his mouth. Chapter 27-23. Shuer, did you miss me too? As Lung Ruoxua listened to his words, her forehead was filled with black lines. She couldn't help but feel disgusted. This old man's reflex arc is really unusually long. Then, everyone helplessly braced themselves as they listened to Dongfang Yu go on and on about the quest headquarters and the God Lord's estate. Dongfang Yu's saliva flew everywhere as he spoke. He couldn't help but dance when he got to the most emotional part. In the end, no one knew how long he spoke, but everyone was sleepy after listening to him. With much difficulty, Dongfang was getting tired from talking and stopped to take a sip of water. Lung Ruoxue saw this and immediately stood up. I'm finally done. I'm going back to my room to rest. Once she finished speaking, Lung Ruoxue left without any sense of loyalty. Uncle Long and the rest didn't hesitate either, and immediately followed. In the blink of an eye, only Dong Fengyu was left in the large living room, still holding a teacup in a drinking posture. Dong Fengyu was very depressed. He hadn't finished his words yet. All of them actually ran away. AI. Young people nowadays. Why didn't he want to listen to some history? After complaining to himself, he also returned to his room gloomily. Lung Ruoxue, who had just left the living room, went straight into the bangle after returning to her room. However, the moment she entered the bangle, she noticed a strong smell of gunpowder filling the space. Ugh! What was going on? Lung Ruoxue, who was puzzled, walked into the garden elegantly. The moment she stepped into the beautiful garden, she saw the two little fellows, Song and Green Vessel, confronting each other. Song stood calmly in front of Green Vessel, while Green Vessel put his hands on his waist and looked fierce. What's wrong? Lung Ruoxue could not help but ask curiously. Girl, he won't let me plant the little blood in the flower garden. Azure was the first to complain. Sister, I'm doing this for the good of the space. That flower's personality was too strong. It really wasn't suitable to be planted here. At least not now. Qingju said as if he was defending his territory. I didn't expect to be so unpopular. At this moment, the red flower also said with a bitter expression. After listening to the words of the three little fellows, Lung Ruoxue finally managed to sort out some of her thoughts. Girl, don't listen to him. The blood lotus flower can be planted here. Before Lung Ruoxue could speak, Song immediately spoke. You bastard. I knew you didn't have a good heart. You want to cause the space to collapse, don't you? When Qingju heard this, he immediately roared in anger. Why don't you just say that you're too weak now? Song scoffed at Green Vessel's words. You. Qingju was so angry that his cute little face turned red. Then he turned his head and looked at Lung Ruoxue with tears in his eyes. Sister, why did you let this bad guy in? He's bullying me. Sob. I'm so pitiful. I'm being bullied by a cat in my own territory. This was really too unreasonable. Oh heavens! Send down a divine lightning and strike me to death. The despair on Qingju's face made Lung Ruoxue's face turn black. Helpless, Lung Ruoxue could only carry Qingju and cajole. Qingju, don't cry. It's all your sister's fault for being so useless. It's because your sister's strength is too low that you can't recover your strength from your peak. AI. It's all my sister's fault. I've decided that I'll work hard in the future and master the heaven-defying art to its full potential. That way, you'll be able to break the last seal. Lung Ruoxue thought that Qingju would feel better after hearing her words, but who knew that Qingju would cry even harder after hearing her words? He choked out. How can you blame sister for this? The 9th level of the heaven-defying art isn't that easy to break through. Ah, I will work hard. Lung Ruoxue promised. Thanks, yes, as long as sister does her best, it's fine. The path of cultivation is a heaven-defying act, so there's no rush. Hearing Lung Ruoxue's promise, Qingju started to comfort her. Humph, what a master-servant relationship. At this moment, an extremely discordant voice suddenly rang out. Lung Ruoxue instantly felt the surrounding temperature drop by quite a bit. Then she caught a glimpse of Tsong's dark face and his eyes that were spitting fire, staring at her fiercely. Lung Ruoxue's heart trembled. Could it be that Tsong was jealous? This wasn't a fun thing to do. Lung Ruoxue was a little scared, but it was clear that Green Vessel was not an easy person to get along with. Of course, she would not let go of any opportunity to deal a blow to Tsong. She smiled and said, That's right. My relationship with my sister is not something that a latecomer like you can compare to. I'm finished. This was definitely the beginning of a fight. Lung Ruoxue was so worried that her heart was in her throat. All of a sudden she regretted it. Why did she let these two little fellows get together? She was asking for it. No wonder people said that one would not die if they did not seek death. She was one now. Lung Ruoxue wanted to cry but had no tears. With a change of thought, she moved the azure and blood lotus flower out of the bangle. Since only green vessel was left, he naturally would not look for trouble. He smiled at Lung Ruoxue and said, "Sister, you can play by yourself. I'm going to work." Qingju was very happy. I shouldn't have let that damn cat in. However, that silly cat had a way to hide her aura, so he couldn't stop her. But now, with the blood lotus flower, if that guy wanted to come in, no way. At the very least, he couldn't let them harm his land. At the thought of this, Qingju reminded Lung Ruoxue cautiously, "Elder sister, it's not that I'm being stingy, but the space right now simply can't withstand the violent qi of that blood lotus flower. That flower has just gained sentience, so it can't control its own qi at all. Therefore, letting it live in here will only do more harm than good to the space." "I understand." Lung Ruoxue nodded and left the bracelet. Lung Ruoxue's head started to hurt when she thought about the other guy outside, who could be extremely violent. However, when she got out of the bracelet, she didn't find any trace of Tsang. Where did Tsang go? Lung Ruoxue was a little scared. If she didn't pacify that little fellow, she really couldn't guarantee what Tsang would do. She was so scared that she started to search everywhere. But the result was disappointing. The group searched for a long time, even going through Demon City several times, but they still did not find a palm-sized snow-white kitten. Lung Ruoxue was really anxious now, and she couldn't stop sighing. "Swear, what's going on? Shouldn't Tsang be in the space?" Uncle Long was puzzled. How long had it been? How did Senior Tsang disappear again? Lung Ruoxue sighed again before telling Uncle Long and the others everything. When everyone heard this, they were all speechless. It turned out that a certain cat had run away from home because of jealousy. Wait a minute. Run away from home? Oh my God. This was no small matter. Who knew what a certain cat would do in a fit of anger? No matter how everyone thought about it, they all felt that the situation was very serious. They understood Azure's personality too well. That fellow was not someone who could be wronged. Moreover, this grievance was given to him by Shui. Chapter 27-24. Shui, did you miss me too? 3. At the thought of this, Uncle Long looked at Lung Ruoxue with a look of deep sympathy. Then he sighed and said, "Shui, actually you don't have to worry too much. It's probably just a momentary rage. Who knows, it might come back tomorrow." I hope so." Lung Ruoxue did not think that it would be so easy. Song had always been willful, and this time, he had completely angered it. However, she didn't want everyone to be too worried, so she could only give them a perfunctory look. And the truth was exactly as Lung Ruoxue had thought. Azure didn't return at all. It wasn't just one day, but several days in a row. This time, everyone had to admit that things were really serious. Not long after, news from the Divine Realm had reached the City of Demons. The Imperial City was attacked by unknown people, and all the walls had collapsed. Lung Ruoxue and the rest didn't even need to guess to know that the unknown person in the legends was definitely Tsang. Lung Ruoxue, who was in the living room, had already sighed countless times. Uncle Long and the others didn't say a word. They really didn't know what to say. Fortunately, the God Lord's estate was the unlucky one this time. Otherwise, if Tsang came to Demon City and wreaked havoc, they would not be able to stop him. When they thought of this, Uncle Long and the others were extremely glad. Even if Tsang was angry, he could still distinguish between inside and outside. Shui, we have to find Senior Tsang as soon as possible. The longer we delay, the angrier Senior Tsang will be. After thinking about it, Master Ning couldn't help but remind him. Of course I know, but I haven't thought of how to coax it. Lung Ruoxue said gloomily. If she had known, she would have gone to the God-protecting pagoda long ago. But you can't just close your eyes. I'm afraid Senior Tsang will be even angrier if you act like this. The master of the Ning family was speechless, but it was rare to see Shui being afraid of wolves in front and tigers in the back, and also hesitant. But when he thought of Tsang's bad temper, he didn't have the mood to watch a good show. How about, you guys help me think? Lung Ruoxue probed. However, when everyone heard her words, they shook their heads in unison. They couldn't figure it out either. Tsang clearly felt that Shui was biased towards Qingju. Otherwise, he would not have left home in a fit of anger. Ai. It's not easy. Lung Ruoxua also knew that things were difficult to handle. At this moment, she suddenly missed evildoer a lot. If the demon was here, he would definitely have a way to deal with the angry Tsang. As if he had sensed something, the demon, who was in a very low mood in the Nine Nether prison, suddenly had a bright light flash in his eyes, and a faint smile appeared on his lips. Where are you thinking of me too? Not far away, the servants who were carefully keeping a distance from the evildoer, but did not dare to go too far in case their lord summoned them. When they saw their lord suddenly smile, they immediately heaved sighs of relief. How long has it been? He finally saw his lord smile. Although his lord had always been very serious, he had never been surrounded by an endless low pressure like this. This oppressive aura had even spread to the entire Nine Nether prison, causing everyone in the Nine Nether prison to be very careful and not dare to breathe. Men! Suddenly, the demon shouted. The servant closest to him quickly ran to the demon and said in a low voice, "Please give your orders, master. Find Muli for me." The demon said anxiously. Yes, yes, the servant replied and then disappeared. Not long after, Muli, who had heard the news from his master, came. Seeing that his lord was in a good mood, Muli also relaxed. He asked with a faint smile, "My lord, is there something good? Schwer must be missing me." The demon said matter-of-factly. When Muli heard this, he didn't know how to react for a moment. What do you mean by should be? Is his lord not sure? Then why did his lord order him to come? What does master need Muli to do? Although she was very puzzled, Muli knew that her lord would not call her over for no reason. After all, her lord had forbidden them from disturbing her these days. Find a way to contact Minga and the others. The demon ordered indifferently. My lord, I've been trying my best, but as you know, the rules of heaven and earth are hindering me. It'll be difficult for me to contact them. Muli said helplessly. Detestable rules of heaven and earth. One day, I'll beat you up so badly that even your mother won't be able to recognize you. When the demon heard this, he furiously roared at the sky. Hearing this, Muli couldn't help but feel a little speechless. Were there any mothers to the rules of heaven and earth? If there was, it should be chaos, right? Based on this calculation, wouldn't the regulations of the heaven and earth and their master be brothers? As soon as Muli thought this, a bolt of lightning as thick as a baby's arm suddenly fell from the sky. It happened to be in the direction where he was standing. Muli couldn't dodge in time and was directly struck by the lightning. In an instant, his entire body was charred black, and he even gave off the smell of something being burnt. Thanks fuck. He really bullied the weak and feared the strong. The one who cursed the rules of heaven and earth was his lord, so why did he strike him? Muli was very angry, but he didn't dare to show it. He looked at his master with a face full of resentment. His eyes were filled with tears, as if he was accusing himself of being his master's cannon fodder. However, the evildoer did not feel guilty. He calmly looked at Muli, who was completely black, and continued to instruct. You have to think of a way. In short, no matter how long it takes, you have to contact him, understand? Yes. Muli quickly responded. Then, seeing that his lord had no other instructions, he immediately took his leave, and went back to clean up his image. He really couldn't see anyone in his current state. After Muli left, the demon started to worry again, and continued to release cold air. The surrounding temperature dropped several degrees in an instant. The attendants burst into tears. At the same time, Lung Ruoxua was also in a sorrowful mood. Uncle Long and the others didn't know how to comfort her, so they could only accompany her in silence. A few days passed by in a flash. During this period, the Ascender Alliance's Alliance Master had been looking for an opportunity to talk to Lung Ruoxua. However, when he saw that everyone seemed to be anxious about something, he was too embarrassed to speak. Hence, he decided to stay in Demon City for a while. Half a month later, Lung Ruoxua had finally made up her mind to look for Tsang. When Uncle Long and the others heard her decision, they almost applauded and cheered. You bastard! They did not wish to continue living such boring days. Furthermore, many of their matters in Demon City had been delayed due to Cher's bad mood. Fortunately, Cher had finally come around. Just as Uncle Long and the rest were about to say a few words to encourage Lung Ruoxua to be brave and confess her sins to Tsang, Lung Ruoxua suddenly said to everyone, "I hope some of you can come with me." Wu. She was afraid of returning home and didn't dare face Tsang's anger alone. When Uncle Long and the others heard this bad news, they all burst into tears. This matter. Would it be of any use if they went? After thinking for a while, under the encouraging gazes of the crowd, Uncle Long bit the bullet and said with a bit of difficulty, "Shuer, there's no problem for us to go with you, but do you think Senior Tsang would be happy to see us? If it knew that you didn't dare to see it alone, and wanted us to accompany you, would it be even angrier?" They would. Lung Ruoxua's face was covered in tears. With her understanding of Tsang, he definitely would. Moreover, she hadn't gone to find Tsang for so many days. So Tsang's anger had probably accumulated to an unimaginable degree. Well, if she didn't seek death, she wouldn't die. Once again, Lung Ruoxua understood the profound meaning behind this sentence. In the end, under the sympathetic gazes of Uncle Long and the others, Lung Ruoxua left Demon City and headed to the God-protecting tower to look for Tsang. Seeing that Lung Ruoxua was finally willing to face reality, Uncle Long and the rest heaved a sigh of relief. One had to know that during this period of time, their days were also not good. He had to sigh with Shuer every day. This kind of life was really not for humans. Now they were finally free. Uncle Long and the others cheered. They were happy, but Lung Ruoxua's heart was extremely heavy. The closer she got to the God-protecting tower, the heavier her mood became. When she finally stood at the entrance of the God-protecting tower, she did not dare to go in. After pacing outside the God Protection Tower for a long time, Lung Ruoxua kept thinking about how to speak to Tsang when she saw him. In fact, she had already thought of many plans, but she was not satisfied with them. And just as she was hesitating about when to enter, someone struck up a conversation with her. The person who struck up a conversation was a young man who had just rolled out of the God Protecting Pagoda. When he saw Lung Ruoxua, he hurriedly got up from the ground in a sorry state. Then, his face revealed an extremely shocked expression. After tidying up his appearance, the man then calmly walked forward and asked, "Young miss, do you also want to enter the God-protecting pagoda for the trial?" Of course she wasn't he. Lung Ruoxua was silent for a moment. She had no intention of acknowledging this fellow who was trying to get close to her. However, that man clearly did not recognize Lung Ruoxua, and even took her silence as consent. He continued to speak to himself. "I'm telling you, this God-protecting pagoda's trial is not easy to pass. I've been here for many years, but I've never succeeded." The man couldn't help but sigh as he spoke. When Lung Ruoxua heard this, she thought to herself, if you succeed, won't you become the owner of the God-protecting pagoda? She was very clear that because not many people knew about her relationship with Azure, and it was almost never made public, there were still many people who were unwilling to give up and thought that there would be great opportunities coming to the trial. Azure did not stop these people from advancing one after another, and instead took pleasure in it. The person she was looking at now was just one of them. Lung Ruoxua didn't want to pour cold water on such a persistent person. Hence, she remained silent. Who knew that the man would think that Lung Ruoxua was afraid after hearing his words, and even consoled her. "But you don't have to worry too much. I've already concluded my experience in this trial. If you need it, I can pass it on to you for free." The man's words were very sincere, but Lung Ruoxua did not believe that there would be free lunch in the world. Hence, she rejected him tactfully. "Thank you, but I don't need it." With that, Lung Ruoxua did not give the man any more chances to strike up a conversation, and walked straight into the God-protecting pagoda. Chapter 27-25. The Formation Fanatic of the Qilin Clan 1. After entering the God-protecting pagoda, Lung Ruoxua suddenly realized that in order to avoid being hit on, she had actually forgotten to be timid and had entered just like that. But this was good. At least it saved her from hesitating. "Azure, are you there?" Lung Ruoxua, who had calmed down very quickly, called out softly. "No." An angry voice replied in an unpleasant tone. Lung Ruoxua broke out in a cold sweat when she heard the word not around. This was clearly Azure's voice and he wasn't there? Was it a ghost that was not replying? Song, I know you're here, Lung Ruoxua was about to say something nice, but before she could finish her sentence, she realized that she was in another place. She was no stranger to this place. This was Azure's control center. A little white kitten was lying on the recliner and staring at her angrily. The little red flower was playing alone on the other side of the chair. It was rare to see a flower playing around. Cold sweat dripped from Lung Ruoxua's forehead. Then she looked at Song and said gently, Azure, I'm here to take you home. Home? This is my home. Song's entire body exuded a faint sorrow, forming a sharp contrast with his previous appearance of anger. Who said that Demon City is also your home? Lung Ruoxua walked closer to Song and gently stroked Song's soft fur as she tried to please him. Oh really? Then how could you treat me like this? You're biased. Azure Fire complained, and the sorrow on his body was instantly replaced by anger. Instantly, he became a little cat with its fur standing on end. Lung Ruoxua felt her head throb, but she still had to explain. Song, I'm not biased. In my heart, you and Qingju are equally important. Lung Ruoxua tried to placate him. Really? Then why did you only move me out of that broken bracelet? Song's eyes drooped and he said worriedly, Ugh. Lung Ruoxua couldn't help but wipe her cold sweat. If I don't move you out, am I supposed to move Green Vessel out? That's someone else's territory, so of course they can only move an outsider like you. Lung Ruoxua carefully phrased her words. Song, the bracelet originally belonged to Green Vessel, so I had no choice but to move you outside. Otherwise, I'm really afraid that the two of you will fight. In addition, after I moved you out, I immediately came out as well, but you and the Blood Lotus flower were both gone. These words made Lung Ruoxua feel a little resentful. She wanted to let Azure know that she cared about it a lot. In fact, even if she didn't say this, Azure was also well aware of this. Just like in the God Guardian Tower, in order to keep both sides calm, the one who would be driven out would definitely be an outsider. However, it couldn't get over this in its heart. It felt that Nyo was biased. Especially when Green Vessel showed off to it that it had known Nyo for a long time. Humph. This was even more intolerable. What's the big deal? Didn't he just get to know Nyo a few days ago? Was there a need to be so smug? Song's heart was extremely unbalanced. Thanks, girl. Then tell me now in your heart, who is more important, me or that broken bracelet? You're all important. Lung Ruoxua hated this kind of multiple-choice question the most. No matter who she offended, she would be the unlucky one. We're not allowed to be important. You have to choose one. Azure didn't like this answer and angrily demanded, Song, I'm telling the truth. You're all the most important people to me, and there's no order to your ranking. Lung Ruoxua explained patiently, just like my grandfather, my brother, and the rest, you are all my family. If you really want to fight, I will be the one in a difficult position. Song, you don't want me to be in a difficult position, right? Lung Ruoxua continued and pleaded pitifully. Did I make things difficult for you? When Azure heard this, he narrowed his eyes and said with an unkind expression, No, I didn't. No. Why would Song make things difficult for me? Lung Ruoxua immediately tried to please him. Humph. That's more like it. However, we haven't settled the score between us yet. I won't forgive you so easily. Seeing this, Song reminded. The moment Lung Ruoxua heard this, she felt her head throb. After coming here, seeing that Song didn't ignore her, Lung Ruoxua thought that Song would be fine after some coaxing. Who knew that this little guy was still angry? Sigh. She was simply helpless. Song, what can I do to make you not angry? Lung Ruoxua sighed softly and coaxed him. I can't help but be angry. You actually took so long to come and coax me. Song Aojiao said. After he finished speaking, he even turned his little head. His cute and adorable appearance made Lung Ruoxua's heart flutter. Song's current appearance was really too cute. The moment she thought of this, Lung Ruoxua's hands could not help but stroke Song's soft and smooth fur again. She praised. Hee. Azure is too cute. Azure put on a noble and cold appearance and snorted coldly, but in his heart, he couldn't help but be secretly happy. In fact, he was deliberately acting like this because he knew very well that Nyo had no resistance to cute little animals. And Nyo's performance made it quite satisfied. In fact, ever since it left Demon City in a fit of anger, it had some regrets in its heart, but it couldn't bring itself to return by itself. Thus, it had been waiting in the Guardian Tower for Nyo to come and find it. Who knew that time would pass day by day, and it had almost become a stone to look for Nyo. But Nyo still hadn't come. Such a fact caused the anger in its heart to accumulate. It even secretly swore in its heart that it would never easily forgive this hateful girl. However, when it saw Lung Ruoxua for itself, it realized that its anger had miraculously subsided. This made its heart feel rather unbalanced. On what basis? Nyo made it angry, made it sad. Why would it forgive Nyo so quickly? The result of this thought was that it became tsundere. It was like a child throwing a tantrum. The moment it saw Lung Ruoxua, it kept on acting tsundere. Furthermore, its entire body was exuding a hurry up and coax me. The aura. Naturally, Lung Ruoxua did not let it down. She began to coax it patiently. Song, who enjoyed being pampered, didn't admit that he had forgiven Nyo. Lung Ruoxua could only say all kinds of good things, and even promised many unfair conditions before Tsong was finally not angry anymore. Seeing how sincere you are, I'll forgive you, Azure said with a magnanimous look. Thank you. Lung Ruoxua was so touched that tears welled up in her eyes. She truly felt that it wasn't easy for her. Luckily, Song didn't make things too difficult for her. Before she came here, she had thought that Song would have many different reactions. At this moment, she truly felt that Song was very kind. What's there to thank? If you weren't the one who made me angry, I wouldn't be able to forgive you so quickly. If it dares to offend me, I'll consider it a light punishment if I don't kill it. Azure warned. If trying to kill the other party was considered a light punishment, then what was considered a heavy punishment? Even though Lung Ruoxua was very curious about this, she did not dare to ask. After that, she took the initiative to change the topic. Song, let's go home. Chapter 27-26. The Formation Fanatic of the Qilin Clan. 2. I can go home, but what about Little Blood? Cold pointed at Little Blood, who was happily playing alone. How about I find a place in the garden for it to stay? Lung Ruoxua tried to probe. The garden? How can you let Little Blood live in that kind of place? When Cold heard this, he was furious again. Lung Ruoxua broke out in a cold sweat. What was wrong with the garden? It was much better than the barren mountain where the blood lotus flower had once lived. Of course, he definitely couldn't say this out loud, or else he would definitely burst away. Why don't you pick a place? Lung Ruoxua gave the choice to Tsong. Let Little Blood live in the garden of your house. There's plenty of spiritual qi there, which is good for Little Blood's growth. Song said with some hesitation before adding. Actually, the most suitable place is still inside that broken bracelet. Azure, that place shouldn't be able to withstand Little Blood's aura. Lung Ruoxua reminded him carefully, afraid that Song would think that she was biased towards Qingju. However, this time, Azure wasn't angry, he just said somewhat unhappily. It's not that I can't take it, but am afraid that Xiao Shue's condition might be unstable. Such a situation would happen to treasures that had just developed intelligence. Because they were still too young, sometimes they couldn't control their own aura at all. In addition, the blood lotus flower was very special and not an ordinary treasure of heaven and earth. So in fact, the broken bracelet's worries were not without reason. It just didn't want to admit it. Was there a difference? After Lung Ruoxua heard Song's words, she madly wiped away her sweat and remained silent. Just let it live in your house. Wait until Little Blood can control his breath before entering the broken bracelet. Azure confirmed. After Lung Ruoxua heard this, she could finally put her heart at ease. After settling Song's matter, Lung Ruoxua returned to Demon City with great confidence. When Uncle Long and the others saw that Lung Ruoxua had returned alone, a look of pity appeared on their faces. Everyone chimed in, and he consoled Lung Ruoxua, telling her not to be anxious. He even said that one day, he would be able to coax Song. Lung Ruoxue didn't know whether to laugh or cry. In the end, when she finished listening to everyone's consoling and told Uncle Long and the others that Song had been coaxed, the expressions on everyone's faces were wonderful. They had expressed their feelings wrongly. How embarrassing. Uncle Long and the others smiled awkwardly and changed the topic. Since everything's fine now, we can officially begin Demon City's celebration. Thanks. And Lung Ruoxue nodded. She knew that Uncle Long and the others had been waiting for the city to be built, so they could throw a huge celebration. It could be said that they had been looking forward to this day for a long time. Lung Ruoxue, who knew what they were thinking, naturally would not stop them. However, when Lung Ruoxue heard that Uncle Long and the others were planning to send an invitation to the Divine Master's residence, she felt a little conflicted. Although Uncle Long and the others had a good idea, Lung Ruoxue didn't think that Song would be in the mood to attend Demon City's founding ceremony when he destroyed the city walls in a fit of anger. Moreover, it was impossible for Wuxia to send someone here. I'm afraid he's going to die of anger. However, Lung Ruoxue did not object to their invitation to the Divine Master's residence. After all, these matters had always been handled by Uncle Long and the others. She just had to be a hands-off manager. The official celebration for Demon City's establishment was scheduled to take place half a month later. This would give the various major powers enough time to arrive. Of course, they didn't care how many people arrived. They only hoped that more people would know about this matter. As for the celebration, it would be better if it was done by their own people. That way, they would be more at ease. Not long after the guild had sent out the invitations to the various major powers, the guild responsible for quests, from the main headquarters to the various branch guilds, also announced the news to the entire divine world, and even the divine continent. This matter was also treated as a mission that Lung Ruoxue had wanted to issue when she went to the imperial city previously. The headquarters then reported it to the Divine Master's residence. When Wu Jing heard that Lung Ruoxue had built a city, she did not have any other reaction other than sneering. From her point of view, so what if Lung Ruoxue had built a city? Could it be that the land of demons could replace Yu Cheng's position in the god realm? However, after knowing that Lung Ruoxue had actually sent her an invitation, she could not help but sigh. Lung Ruoxue was really bold. Go. Why not? If Lung Ruoxue dared to invite her, she would dare to send someone over. Of course, she wouldn't go there personally. Lung Ruoxue didn't have that much face to invite her. However, when Wu Yan's decision reached Xia Yi and the other two hierarch experts, the three of them were still stunned for a long time. They were completely unable to understand God Lord Mist Ripple's intentions. God Lord Mist Ripple had actually ordered the three of them to celebrate for Lung Ruoxue. The three of them naturally didn't dare to disobey the God Lord's orders. More importantly, the three of them were interested in the demon city that Lung Ruoxue had built. 3 days before Demon City's celebration, more than half of the various major powers' representatives had already arrived. Uncle Long and the others were naturally happy to see all the forces giving them face. Originally, they had thought that it would be good if half of the people came because of the deterrence of the rhyme bitch. However, they didn't expect that apart from a few top forces from the 8 great divine regions who were on good terms with them, basically all the major, medium, and small forces had sent representatives. This time they had also sent out a wide invitation. Apart from the forces of a certain scale, they didn't let a few small forces go. The only reason he had invited all of the factions was to increase Demon City's reputation. Otherwise, small factions wouldn't have the qualifications to participate in a gathering of this level. Those who were sent to participate in the celebration were basically influential figures from the various forces. However, these people, who thought they had seen many things, were all shocked speechless for a long time after seeing the current state of the demon's land. Shocking. It was absolutely shocking. What was the demonic land like in the past? The mountains were next to each other, and all the good places in them were occupied by the major beast clans. When humans ventured into the land of demons, they could only move around in the periphery most of the time. No one dared to go deep unless a few powerhouses dared to go in. But now, This place had become a city. Although there were still a few mountains, the current mountains were clearly different from before. At the same time, they were surrounded by a city. It could be said that the current demon city was gorgeous, majestic, and majestic. There was a city, a mountain, a water, and a forest. There was even a magic formation set up in the forest. If they didn't have someone leading the way, it would be difficult for them to enter. However, even though they were brought in, they still received a friendly reminder that the outer forest was very dangerous, and it was best to stay in their homes and not wander around. Otherwise, they would be responsible for the consequences if they got lost. At first, some of the people from the other forces did not take such a warning seriously. This was because they had come here not only to participate in the celebration, but also to find out everything about this place. It would be best if they could form a map. However, after a certain disobedient faction was trapped in the forest for several days and suffered mental torture, all the factions gave up on the idea of exploring and obediently stayed in their own homes. Chapter 27:27. The Formation Fanatic of the Qilin Clan. 3. Uncle Long and the others were naturally satisfied with this result. In fact, they dared to invite all the major forces here because they were not afraid that their family's secret would be found out. But whether those people had the ability to find out or not, that was their business. It could be said that Uncle Long and the others' confidence had greatly stimulated some restless forces. They even felt that Uncle Long and the others had a backup plan. As a result, no one dared to have any other thoughts. They only waited for the celebration to begin so that they could leave this beautiful but extremely terrifying place as soon as possible. The day before the celebration, the people from the Divine Lord's estate, whom everyone had thought would not come, finally arrived. When they saw that 3 reverent god-level experts had come to the Divine Master's residence, they were all in a mess. What was going on? Was it the rhythm of Lung Ruoxue and God Lord Fogripple's reconciliation? The representatives of the major forces could not help but let their thoughts run wild. Uncle Long and the others were clearly surprised that the Divine Master's estate had sent someone. However, Uncle Long and the others were all smart people. When they saw Xia Yi and the other 2, they immediately went up to them warmly. After arranging accommodation for the 3 of them, Uncle Long went to find Xian Yi in private to inquire about the situation. As soon as Xian Yi saw Uncle Long, he naturally knew what he wanted to ask. He immediately said, "Don't ask me, I'm also confused. The Miss sent us here." Oh, since Xian Yi had said so, Uncle Long naturally didn't need to continue asking. Then the 2 of them started to chat. Xian Yi was naturally concerned about who had come. When he heard that the Dragon Clan, White Tiger Clan, and Phoenix Clan had all sent their respective representatives, he couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock as he said in disbelief, "The 3 clans still dare to come. I'm not sure if they dare to or not, but I've already casually sent them an invitation." And they really did send people over. However, other than the White Tiger race, the other 2 clans are clearly much more well-behaved. Uncle Long explained with an evil smile. The White Tiger race wasn't as restrained as the other 2 races. This was also because during this period of time, some of the White Tiger race's clansmen had been staying here to work and earn medicinal pills. They could be considered to have become familiar with them. Furthermore, the White Tiger King was still in their hands, so the other party wouldn't dare to be disobedient. They've suffered such a huge blow last time, they have no choice but to be honest. Xian Yi smiled in understanding. By the way, are the Dragon Emperor and the Phoenix King hiding in the Divine Master's estate? Uncle Long nodded. Then he suddenly thought of the 2 guys who were the main culprits and asked, "As far as I know, he's not here." Xian Yi said honestly, "That's weird. Which mouse hole are those 2 old things hiding in?" Uncle Long said to himself, "What's the hurry? He'll come out eventually. They're no match for you. And as long as Rhymice doesn't make a move, they won't be able to cause any trouble." Xian Yi was not worried at all. That's true. Uncle Long also agreed. Soon, the 2 of them changed to another topic of conversation. The 2 old friends reminisced about the past in a relaxed mood for a while before Uncle Long got up and left. The next day, it was the day of the celebration. However, a few hours before the ceremony officially began, Uncle Long suddenly received a report that someone had come. He was currently running around in the forest like a headless fly. After asking about the situation and finding out that the person was quite powerful, Uncle Long went out to welcome him personally. But when he walked into the forest and caught a glimpse of the man's clothes, Uncle Long was stunned. It was a handsome man in his 30s. He had an extraordinary bearing and his every move was that of a superior. However, at this moment, the man's expression was very excited. Although there was a trace of confusion on his face, Uncle Long could see that the man was having a great time playing alone. Uncle Long felt that if he was not mistaken, this man should be breaking the formation in the forest. Originally, this was a maze-like forest. Later on, Schwer added some illusionary formations in it. As a result, the paths here were even more difficult to grasp. However, the man in front of him was clearly quite interested in everything here. Thanks, however, Schwer's formation was passed down from Master Yu. It wasn't that easy to break. Uncle Long suddenly felt helpless. However, this man's identity was extraordinary. He was definitely an important guest, so Uncle Long really did not want this man to waste his time here. With this thought in mind, Uncle Long walked toward the man. However, the man clearly didn't pay any attention to the people behind him. He was still completely focused on the formation in the forest. Strange. How did this happen? The man muttered to himself as he observed the formation that appeared from time to time. He was really a formation fanatic. Uncle Long was helpless and could only take the initiative to say, "Your Excellency from the Qilin clan, I've specially come to pick you up." Uncle Long had addressed the man as Your Excellency, because he did not know his name. Furthermore, although this formation fanatic of the Qilin clan was a godly venerable rank beast like him, this man's strength was definitely higher than his. Hence, he had addressed the man as Your Excellency willingly. It couldn't be helped. This was the foundation of the Qilin clan. As one of the 4 strongest king-level divine beast clans among the beast clans, the Qilin clan was relatively low-key compared to the other 3 clans. However, this low-key of theirs contained a sense of luxury, so low-key that no one dared to look down on them. It could be said that among the 4 great king divine beast clans, the Qilin clan had the highest status. The Qilin clan was also the only beast clan that had not been successfully broken through by Wuxia in the incident with Master Yu. Uncle Long admired them for this. However, the Qilin clan's reproductive ability was not as strong as the other 3 clans. Thus, the number of members of the Qilin clan was actually quite small. Until now, it was said that the number of members of the Qilin clan was less than 100. After thinking about this, Uncle Long realized that the other party didn't respond at all. He had no choice but to speak again. "Your Excellency from the Qilin race, I heard you. Go play somewhere else and don't disturb me while I'm studying the formation." The man interrupted Uncle Long before he could finish. Uncle Long looked as if he had expected this and continued to remind him, "Your Excellency, you're here to attend our city building celebration, right? It's about to start." "I know, but I haven't figured out how to solve this formation yet." The man replied, his head still lowered and very focused. Uncle Long was helpless. He had never seen a beastie that loved formations so much. One had to know that almost all the beasts were idiots at formations. After thinking for a while, Uncle Long could only throw out a bait. "This array was set up by my Schwer. If you are really interested in arrays, you can have a good match with Schwer after the celebration." As expected, the man immediately raised his head after hearing Uncle Long's words. He stared at Uncle Long with bright eyes and said, "Schwer? Is it Lung Ruoxue?" Uncle Long nodded. Seeing this, the man stood up straight and confirmed with a worried expression, "You said it yourself. Once your celebration is over, I will immediately look for Lung Ruoxue to spar with her on array techniques." Hearing the man's words, Uncle Long suddenly realized that he had caused Schwer a lot of trouble. Looking at this man's infatuated expression, Schwer probably had something to do. But at this moment, Uncle Long couldn't care so much. After all, the celebration was more important. This was the first time that Demon City had displayed its glory to the entire immortal realm. He absolutely couldn't delay. With this thought in mind, Uncle Long brought the man, who was obviously still reluctant to part with the formation in the forest, back to the main residence without any guilt. At this time, the main residence was already crowded with people. However, the man's appearance still caused a commotion among everyone. This was because the totem on the corner of this man's clothes was a mighty golden qilin with its head held high. In the entire divine world, only the Qilin clan would dare to embroider a qilin on their clothes. When the White Tiger race's first elder saw this man, he was so shocked that his jaw almost fell to the ground. He rubbed his eyes with all his might, and in the next second, he hurriedly ran over to the man and gave a deep bow, saying with extreme respect, "Old ancestor, why are you here? Oh my God!" This ancestor had actually come out for a walk. Could it be that the Qilin clan was about to change? The White Tiger first elder was so shocked that he broke out in a cold sweat. One had to know that this person's status was definitely one of the top in the Qilin race. Although he couldn't compare to the Qilin race leader, he wasn't that far off. More importantly, this person had never cared about worldly affairs, and was only obsessed with formations. Therefore, the Grand Elder of the White Tiger race couldn't understand why this ancestor would come here. More importantly, this person was of the same generation as the previous White Tiger King who had been sealed. Hence, even if this person was not from the White Tiger clan, he still had to respectfully address him as old ancestor. Of course, everyone present only knew that this man was from the Qilin race, but they didn't know his identity. When they saw the White Tiger race's great elder calling the other party old ancestor, they were all surprised for a long time. However, whether it was the man or the White Tiger race's great elder, they felt that there was no need to explain to them. Therefore, everyone's reaction was ignored. However, when Uncle Long heard the White Tiger first elder call this man old ancestor, he thought to himself, this man's status is indeed high. He was very satisfied that the Qilin clan had sent such a high-ranking clansman. Then, Uncle Long politely invited the man to take a seat. The man didn't act coy. He smiled and nodded before sitting down. Then he picked up an exquisite piece of dessert from the plate on the table beside him and tasted it. Then his eyes revealed a surprised light. Your place really lives up to its reputation. The desserts are really delicious. It seems that I didn't come in vain. The man said happily. He had two hobbies in his life. One was formations, and the other was eating. It could be considered a coincidence that he had come to Demon City. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.